Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobook. American Comics, Level 5 Mutants start with Gojo Satoru. Chapter 21 7 Consecutive Black Flashes. Spell Reversal He, 1/100 A repulsive force is generated with He as the center. The minimum power is twice that of Cang, and the maximum output is positive infinity, similar to a small supernova. A large amount of information about the reversal of the H technique flooded out of his mind, and Su-mu instantly mastered the method of using the H reversal technique. At this time, he could perfectly perform the spell to reverse H without incurring a lot of unnecessary consumption like the last time. And no more risk of being killed by your own powers. Thinking of this, the smile on Su-mu's face became even more joyful. He looked at the hatred that stood up from the spot and rushed towards him, but he did not immediately use the magic to reverse H. After all, the purpose of his coming was not only to experiment with the magic reversal H, but also to practice Black Flash and enhance the success rate of Black Flash. Su-mu directly released the unlimited spell, and used all his strength to absorb energy and manipulate magic power to strengthen his body. Then, facing the hatred that rushed towards him, all his muscles worked together. Boom! The familiar black lightning burst out again, and the hatred that rushed towards Su-mu flew backwards at a faster speed. Su-mu looked at his right hand. Even with energy absorption and mantra manipulation to double strengthen his body, his physical quality at this time was still lower than Abomination. If he hadn't used the Black Flash this time, he might have been knocked away. Reversal Spell Experience +1. When the reversal technique is activated, the slightly broken bones and scratches on the right hand are restored at a speed visible to the naked eye. It seems that the recovery speed is faster than that of Abomination. On the top floor of the high-rise building, Tony Stark looked at the scene in front of him, watching the white-haired demon completely crushing the green-skinned monster, and swallowed again. Fake. Who is the monster? However, his expression suddenly changed and he shouted to Su-mu. Careful! At the same time, Su-mu heard a harsh sound breaking through the air, and then felt that he was enveloped by a huge shadow. A huge fist hit Su-mu's head. When Hulk was about to take action, Su-mu used his 6 eyes to notice it. However, he did not panic or even pay attention. Instead, he rubbed his chin with his fingers and thought quietly. After using Black Flash, it will enter a special state that allows the user to exert 120% of their strength. So is this the zone state? After using the Black Flash last time, Su-mu noticed that the effect of using the Black Flash twice in a row this time was even more profound. All the cells in the body are beating, and the mind is concentrated like never before. You can detect details that you couldn't detect in the past. Boom! Hulk's fist broke through the sound barrier, forming a sonic boom visible to the naked eye, and struck Su-mu's head. However, even with such a terrifying punch, after approaching a distance of 10 centimeters around Su-mu, he could no longer move forward. Hulk then swung his fist out of the afterimage and attacked Su-mu continuously, but it still had no effect. Even if you just look at the surface, Hulk's power completely crushes Su-mu, but for some reason, everyone watching the battle feels that Hulk is just a child, acting coquettishly towards Su-mu, who is an adult. No matter how much he cries, he is still vulnerable to Su-mu as an adult. If the Hulk's attack had no effect, it wasn't. The dust raised by the sonic boom attracted Su-mu's attention. Only then did he come back from his thoughts and look at the Hulk behind him who kept attacking him. With a look of extreme joy on his face, he took a step forward. Hulk was immediately bounced away and kept retreating, and his continuous offensive was interrupted. As soon as Hulk stabilized his body, azure eyes appeared in front of him and looked at him. Then, a hand that was extremely small for him was printed on his forehead, and along with the terrifying black lightning, he was deeply touched. Press deeply into the cement floor. After temporarily suppressing the Hulk, the smile on Su-mu's face became even wider, and then he quickly kicked back. The terrifying black lightning erupted again. The abominable body crushed a tank and a wall before finally stopping. Without looking back, ignoring the hatred of being kicked away again, Su-mu continued to hit Hulk, who was trying to get up. Boom! 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 The black lightning contains huge power. Each attack can make the ground sink several meters. By the time 3 punches pass, a deep pit with a diameter of tens of meters has been formed around it. 3 consecutive black flash blows hit Hulk. At this time, Hulk's head was bleeding and his consciousness was blurred. If Su-mu punched him again, he could directly suppress him and release Banner. But when the 4th punch fell, the terrifying black lightning had not yet appeared. This time it was an ordinary punch. Hulk originally used his arms to block Su-mu's crazy attack, but he felt a little aggrieved at this time. In the previous confrontations of strength, he always won with an absolute advantage. Even when faced with the big guy who was also green just now, he was not without the slightest resistance. But who is the person who appears at this time? He looks very weak, and why does he have such amazing power? Originally, the poor Hulk baby was ready to go back and let Banner face the terrifying white-haired demon in front of him, but suddenly he found that the fist that was terrifying just now fell on him, but it did not cause any harm. Hulk reacted immediately, jumped out of the pit, and roared loudly at the white-haired demon in front of him again. Judging by intuition, the white-haired demon in front of him can no longer easily use the terrifying black lightning just now, and the Hulk's turn is coming. Hulk is full of confidence. And behind Su-mu, Abomination also arrived, and he saw the whole scene. The white-haired demon's black attack just now could not be used continuously. In the news just released by the Global Times, the white-haired demon could only use black lightning once at that time. This time, it was beyond his expectation that he could use it 7 times in a row. But even if it was the white-haired demon, using black lightning 7 times in a row should be close to exhaustion. As long as he and Hulk continued to attack the white-haired demon together, they would definitely be able to penetrate the dam space defense and kill the white-haired demon. The next moment, Abomination and Hulk punched Su-mu at the same time. When facing the white-haired demon, the 2 original enemies were shocked by the unparalleled sense of oppression and even joined forces for a short time. Tony Stark, who saw this scene, immediately ordered Jarvis to speed up and transfer all the steel armors over, ready to rescue Su-mu at any time. Tony Stark believed that even if Su-mu was extremely powerful, he was still no match for the joint attack of 2 monsters. In the distance, Nick Fury, who was watching the battle via satellite, also had a serious expression on his face. He also did not think highly of Su-mu. The terrifying black lightning just now represented an astonishing consumption. Using it 7 times in a row would definitely consume a lot of Su-mu's energy. Hulk and Abomination both had extremely strong recovery abilities and almost endless physical strength. The damage Su-mu had caused to them before was also healing rapidly. In this way, as long as they continued to attack Su-mu and consume his physical strength, they would eventually be able to break Su-mu's defense. Damn, how can Su-mu be saved? Nick Fury did not want to lose an important member of the future Avengers. But he desperately discovered that he had no means to save Su-mu in this situation. Could it be that the white-haired devil was really going to perish? Please read and collect. Chapter 22 The Black and Red Singularity blooms again. But the one who was most worried about the death of the white-haired demon was not Tony Stark or Nick Fury, but Eddie Brock, who was hiding in another tall building and using a camera to shoot downwards. He saw the white-haired demon in crisis. If his strength did not allow it, he would even want to jump down and save the white-haired demon. Damn it, damn it! How could the white-haired demon fall like this? All of Eddie Brock's current achievements are based on the white-haired demon. If the white-haired demon falls from the altar and falls like this, then his reports will also lose their corresponding value, and promotion and salary increase may no longer exist, and even his current status will be lost. No, white-haired demon, come on, you are the strongest. So the future Venom, Mr. Eddie Brock, became the #1 fan of the white-haired demon. In the center of the battlefield, Hulk and Abomination punched Su-mu at the same time. The aftermath of the continuous punching alone broke the cement floor of a large area around. But in the center of the battle, Su-mu, who was worried by everyone, did not feel the slightest bit of tension. He rubbed his chin with his fingers again and looked up at the sky. 7 consecutive black flashes should also break the record of consecutive black flashes in the Jujutsu Kaisen world. Then he stretched his body and looked to both sides. Looking at the 2 hideous green skins, he smiled brightly. It's time to end. Hearing Su-mu's words, the hatred laughed loudly. Yes, it's time to end. When I break your shell, I will definitely break all your bones one by one. Really? Su-mu smiled kindly at the hatred, that's good. Then the hatred saw the white-haired demon in front of him stretched out his index finger and stretched it towards him. He immediately had a bad premonition, and the content of the first report slowly emerged in his mind. When he thought of the terrifying black and red singularity attack, the hatred immediately wanted to escape and avoid this attack. Judging from previous reports, this black and red singularity needs to be charged and stabilized for a period of time before it can be successfully released. In this way, with his speed, he can definitely avoid the terrifying singularity attack. However, under his extremely horrified gaze, the terrifying black-red singularity formed in the blink of an eye, quietly staying at the fingertips of the white-haired demon ready to go. Why is it so fast? He was extremely angry and puzzled. The mantra in the body was transformed into positive mantra after the reversal of the spell, and then circulated regularly in the body, and finally gathered at the fingertips to form a black-red singularity. After the template fusion degree reached 40% and the spell reversal he was obtained, the black-red singularity that was previously extremely difficult to use was now easy to use. The smile on Su-mu's face gradually became cold, and then he said lightly. Spell reversal he. The black-red singularity exploded and infinitely repelled the outside world. At this time, the spell reversal he had no extra energy consumption, and all of it was integrated into the repulsive force that could be infinitely improved. Boom! The abomination tried his best to dodge, but still could not escape the lock of the 6 eyes. The terrifying black-red singularity fell on his chest. Facing the black-red singularity comparable to a small supernova, he had no power to resist and flew straight back. Wherever the abomination passed, it was like a hurricane passing through, destroying all the intercepting objects with a devastating force, turning everything into dust. In the distance, a Mark armor just flew over and was in the middle of the abomination's flight. When the two collided, the armor made of titanium alloy immediately fell apart and split apart in the blink of an eye. Until the end, it fell on a wall again. The abomination's extremely hard body could no longer support it, and was broken out of the chest by the terrifying black and red singularity, and green blood was madly spilled. The black and red singularity that broke through the abomination's hard body still carried amazing power, constantly destroying everything in front of it, until it left a huge gully several kilometers long, leaving a deep scar for the prosperous New York. Hulk looked at everything in front of him dully, looking at the powerful enemy who fell to the ground several kilometers away, groaning constantly and was almost dying. The opponent who just suppressed him, just lost like this. Then Hulk saw the terrifying white-haired demon, turned around and smiled at him, and stretched out his slender, seemingly harmless index finger towards him, just like he had just stretched it towards Abomination. No. Hulk tasted the fear of being dominated for the first time. He roared in despair, and then his body immediately shrank, the green color of his skin gradually faded, and finally turned into a middle-aged man in a coma. Su-mu looked at this scene and snorted. Boring. Then he took out the high-tech mobile phone that Tony helped him buy, walked towards the abomination in the distance, and called Nick Fury. Nico Fury, do you want to collect mutant monsters? Well, they are quite strong, and should be worth studying. Through satellite monitoring, Nick Fury saw the entire battle. He saw that the abomination, who was unscathed in the face of gunfire and artillery rain, and the fully armed modern troops, was defeated by the white-haired demon with one blow, and was almost dying. Seeing the Hulk, who made the military helpless, was scared back by the white-haired demon's brilliant smile. I saw the white-haired demon who was nonchalant about what he had just done. Is this a level 5 mutant? Or is it just a white-haired demon? He subconsciously took the call, and then heard Su Mu's words. After Su Mu repeated it several times, until he was slightly impatient, he came back to his senses from the shock and immediately said, "Take it. Take it. How much do you want?" $100 million each, I think they are worth this money. Deal. On the high-rise building, Tony Stark stared at the Mark armor that was destroyed by the abomination, dumbfounded. As the support of Iron Man, he invested too much effort in the Mark armor, but it was destroyed so easily. Is the gap between him and Su Mu really that big? He looked towards the center of the battle area, and saw that in the middle of the huge gully several kilometers long, the young man was dragging the body of the monster that made him helpless, walking leisurely, and in the direction he was walking, another equally terrifying huge monster had degenerated into the appearance of a middle-aged human man and fell into a deep sleep. And the white-haired young man seemed to notice his gaze, looked at him through the long distance, and smiled brightly. On top of another tall building, about 2,000 meters away from Su Mu, Eddie Brock used his newly purchased camera to completely capture the scene that just happened. Thinking of the white-haired demon who just defeated two terrifying green monsters with a crushing attitude, he was extremely excited. This is the attitude that the white-haired demon should have. Sure enough, the white-haired demon is the most powerful. At the same time, Su Mu, who has maintained the unlimited technique for a long time, heard the prompt from the system. Unlimited technique experience +1. Congratulations, unlimited technique upgrade. Please read and collect it. Chapter 23. After all, there is only one white devil. No lower limit spell LV2, 1/300 interfering with atomic level matter, dominating space. Objects that are closer to the user will become slower and slower, and will never be able to touch the user. A large amount of information continued to pour into his mind, and Su Mu's proficiency in unlimited spells increased rapidly. If the maximum range of the original no lower limit spell is about 5 cm from the body surface, the LV2 no lower limit spell doubles this distance. At this time, the maximum range of action is 10 cm from the body surface. Moreover, because the unlimited technique is the foundation of the technique reverse Cang and the technique reverse Haku, the power of these two techniques has also been strengthened to a certain extent. Not only is the release speed faster, but the power is also fully improved. If you use the technique to reverse the He attack at this time, it will definitely pierce his chest and abdomen directly, instead of knocking him thousands of meters away before piercing his chest and abdomen. After negotiating the price of Abomination and Hulk with Nick Fury, Su Mu waited there. During the half-hour he waited, all armed members did not dare to approach and only dared to monitor from a distance, even General Ross, who was fearless. From the process of capturing Hulk, he has understood the gap between himself and Hulk. At this time, facing Su Mu, who was even more powerful than Hulk, even if he had no brains, he would not waste his troops in vain. The mutants hiding around were extremely excited and stared at the white-haired figure in the center of the ruins of the battlefield. That was their god. The god of mutants. For how long, mutants have been oppressed and subjected to various horrific experiments in secret. Now they finally stand up. Just standing there, hundreds of heavily armed troops did not dare to move forward at all, and they did not even dare to launch missiles. Because they know that these attacks are completely ineffective and can only anger the White Devil and kill them all. Shield's speed was very fast, and not long after, a Quinjet flew in from a distance. The leader of several agents was an old acquaintance, Agent Coulson. Behind him stood a man holding a bow and arrow. Judging from his appearance, he should be Eagle Eye. At this time, Eagle Eye looked curiously at the white-haired man in front of him, then looked around, and finally stopped at a huge ravine that was thousands of meters long. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would never have imagined that the seemingly thin white-haired man in front of him actually contained such terrifying and huge energy. Su-mu ignored Hawkeye and said directly to Coulson. "That's Hulk and Abomination over there. Take over. Remember to use adamantium or vibranium to imprison them, otherwise it will be almost impossible to imprison them." Calvin couldn't help but smile bitterly as he watched Su-mu talk eloquently, as if he was selling Hulk and Abomination as two ordinary commodities. The White Devil is so scary. His appearance has undoubtedly destroyed the balance between mutants and ordinary humans. If we only think from the inside of the Earth, then he and the Nick Bureau will definitely not want an overly powerful mutant like Su-mu to exist. But if we judge from the entire universe, then Su-mu's existence is essential. After all, they know that there are more glorious civilizations in the universe, and the Earth is just a remote corner of the universe and may be destroyed at any time. After Su-mu finished speaking, he said to Coulson, "Agent Coulson, remember to deposit 200 million into my account, and I'll leave first." Then, without waiting for Coulson to answer, the azure spell covered Su-mu's body, and with a sudden force on his feet, he jumped to a tall building nearby, and then used his strength on the wall of the tall building to disappear in an instant. Su-mu is not worried that S.H.I.E.L.D. will default on the money he owes him. These agents are smart people, and Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., is even smarter. They will not make such a stupid choice. Seeing Su-mu go away, Coulson pressed the headset in his ear and reported his work to Nick Fury. After a moment, he looked at Hawkeye beside him. "Agent Patton, what do you think of him?" Hawkeye was still staring at the direction Su-mu left. The wall where Su-mu relied on strength was full of dense and ferocious cracks. Hearing Coulson's question, he was silent for a moment, and then said, "It's hard to imagine that this is a power that humans can have. His power is so terrifying that it makes me feel unreal. I don't understand what the effect of my decades of hard training is. If I fought against him, I would probably be killed instantly, without the ability to resist at all. My attack method mainly relies on special arrows, and the speed of the White Devil is even beyond my eyesight, and it is extremely difficult for the arrows to hit him. Even if it can hit, the terrifying defense." Hawkeye paused here, but Coulson understood what Agent Barton wanted to say. That terrifying defense has no solution at all. Only attacks from space can break through. With today's technology, apart from mutants who also have mutant abilities, how can they launch space attacks? Coulson patted Agent Patton on the shoulder and comforted. "Agent Patton, you are already very strong. After all, there is only one White Devil in the world." "Yes, there is only one White Devil." Arriving at the top of the high-rise building, Tony was already waiting here. When he saw Su-mu return, he curiously circled Su-mu several times, and lasers shot out from his steel eyes to scan him continuously. "How did you do it, face those two monsters, and still win easily? Are you really human?" Tony Stark finally couldn't help but ask this question. Su-mu smiled and said to Tony Stark, "Tony, the world is big and exciting. Even if I am not the strongest now, there are many people on Earth who are stronger than me. Dark Phoenix, Supreme Sorcerer, etc., you need to have a long-term vision." "Really?" Tony Stark questioned, but when he saw the smile on Su-mu's face, his expression gradually became serious. He finally realized that this world is not as simple as he imagined. Even Su-mu is not the strongest, so what kind of power do other strong people have? Dark Phoenix, Supreme Sorcerer. What are the identities of these strong people, and how powerful are they? Wait, mage? Are you saying that there are mages on Earth, the kind of extraordinary people who can cast spells? Of course. Tony Stark was shocked again, and then thought of what Su-mu had just said. "You said that you are not their opponent now, so will you win in the future?" "Yes." Same words as Gojo Satoru, same confidence as Gojo Satoru, but Su-mu with the system is destined to have a different ending from Gojo Satoru, He. Mu. Don't want to be cut in half. At the same time, Coulson, who was transporting Dr. Banner and Hate back to the space carrier, heard a new order from Nick Fury through the headset. A strange crater appeared in New Mexico, and a hammer was placed in the center of the crater. It can't be picked up anyway. Agent Coulson, you are responsible for exploring the hammer. After this mission, you will definitely be given a vacation. Corvin stroked his increasingly sparse hair, hung up the call, and sighed. Hey, Director Nick, you have said this many times. Please read and collect it. Readers who see this, don't forget to invest. You can get Kidian coins for free. Chapter 24, Technique to Transform the King Level 3. Chapter 24, Spell Reversal King LV3. Two major events have happened recently. The first major event is that the Iron Armor incident has been unveiled some time ago. The truth follows Tony Stark's words, I am Iron Man. I'm Iron Man. And that's the end. From then on, the world entered the superhero era. This is an epoch-making event, but another event is no less important than this one, and is even slightly more important. This big event is still about the white-haired demon, that terrifying level 5 mutant. Reporter Eddie Brock, a suddenly rising star in journalism, wrote this in his latest report. An unprecedented terrorist attack occurred in Harlem some time ago. Two terrifying green-skinned monsters wreaked havoc in Harlem, ignoring the attacks of heavily armed troops and killing civilians crazily. At this critical moment, the white-haired demon stood up and easily defeated two terrifying green-skinned monsters using the terrifying black-red singularity. But the white-haired devil is not a kind person, he deserves the title of devil. The black-red singularity attack he released instantly defeated a green-skinned monster, destroyed a large number of buildings, killed hundreds of civilians, destroyed the ground in the aftermath of the attack, and finally formed a huge ravine thousands of meters long. He is far more harmful than the two green-skinned monsters combined. Moreover, according to the analysis of the video footage I took before, the strength of the white-haired devil is steadily and rapidly improving. When he used the black-red singularity for the first time, it was obvious that the black-red singularity was not stable, and according to subsequent analysis by experts, he was probably severely exhausted at that time, and then he let go of the army that surrounded him. But now he releases the black-red singularity again, and the release speed is significantly improved. The black-red singularity is also obviously more stable than before, and the attack power is far more powerful than the first time. As you know, level 5 mutants are mutants with unlimited potential, and the existence of the white-haired demon shows us the terrifying potential of level 5 mutants. I can't help but boldly guess that the white-haired devil's strength at this time is still far from reaching his limit. As time goes by, he will become stronger and stronger, and in the end he will even be able to ignore nuclear bombs. I again ask the military and the government, how are you going to deal with the white-haired devil? Taxpayers' money cannot support incompetent waste. Please ask the military and government to come up with a reasonable response plan. In the hidden base, Magneto put down the newspaper in his hand, with a heartfelt smile on his face. Mystique on the side saw this and was very curious about it. Ever since he formulated the plan to destroy mankind and suffered repeated setbacks in subsequent actions, Eric hadn't smiled from the bottom of his heart for who knows how long. So she looked at the newspaper on the table, and she must have found the reason. After roughly reading the newspaper, she could not control the look of shock on her face. Even though he is a 5th-level mutant, the white-haired demon is growing too fast. Magneto on the side saw the shock on Mystique's face, straightened the psychic helmet on his head, smiled and said to Mystique. Ruin, it seems that without our guidance, the new power is still moving forward on the right path, and our power is getting stronger. At the same time, in a hidden laboratory at Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, Professor X put down the newspaper and raised his eyebrows gently. After a while, he said to the Phoenix girl beside him. Jean, we have to try to contact him. He is gradually falling into darkness. If he is ignored, his power will definitely cause irreparable damage. Jean nodded in agreement, but what Professor X didn't see was that there was a touch of red in her eyes that could not go away for a long time. In a mansion in Los Angeles, the two protagonists who have attracted the attention of the world are sitting on the balcony and sunbathing. Each of them is served by a beautiful woman. If any fans come here, they will definitely see that these two beauties are two of the most popular Hollywood actresses recently. But the two usual protagonists were reduced to supporting roles at this time, without even a single line. By the way, Soo-Mew, before you go to Harlem, don't you have something important to tell me? So what is this thing about? Tony Stark suddenly asked Soo-Mew. Soo-Mew was wearing big flower pants, drinking expensive red wine, and enjoying the service of the blonde. When he heard Tony Stark's question, he remembered, then stretched and said, "Is there something wrong with your health now?" Tony Stark's expression froze, and he immediately forced a smile and said, "No way, my health is fine." Soo-Mew smiled mysteriously and said to Tony Stark without refuting, "As long as you provide an unlimited supply of arc reactor when I need it, I will solve your body problems." Tony Stark was stunned. Is it that simple? Seeing Soo-Mew nod, he immediately said, "Okay, I agree." Soo-Mew swallowed the cherry placed by the blonde's mouth and moaned softly. "Your current dilemma is probably palladium metal poisoning, so you keep drinking chlorophyll to relieve the symptoms of poisoning. If you continue to use the arc reactor made of palladium metal, you will definitely die in the near future." The two slim blondes subconsciously stopped serving and looked at Tony Stark in shock. The world's richest man, the playboy Tony Stark, was about to die? Seeing Tony subconsciously put the chlorophyll in his hand on the table and covering his chest to hide it, Soo-Mew immediately laughed and said, "Don't be nervous, the new elements are hidden in your home, in the architectural sandbox your father left for you. Search carefully and you will definitely find it with your wisdom. Goodbye, next time we meet, I will give you another piece of news while picking up the arc reactor. Of course, it's also important." Then, under the shocked gazes of Tony Stark and the two blondes, Soo-Mew disappeared from the spot in the blink of an eye, without a trace. Tony was stunned for a moment, then smiled helplessly and said, "This guy has become stronger again." At the same time, a burst of footsteps came from outside the door. Under Tony Stark's displeased gaze, Nick Fury walked in, with several agents in black behind him carrying a silver box. A moment later, under the shocked gaze of Nick Fury, Tony Stark lay on the sun lounger and sneered. "Are you talking about a new element? I've found it." High in the distance, Soo-Mew stood out of thin air, with blood oozing from the corners of his mouth. The injuries in his body recovered quickly under the action of the reversal technique. He said helplessly, "Even with the LV3 spell reversal Cang, can't I use teleport continuously? Even with level 3 energy absorption, you will still be injured if you continue to withstand the pressure caused by teleportation. It seems that we have to wait until the magic reversal Cang is raised to LV4, or the energy absorption is raised to LV4, before we can use the magic reversal blue to teleport infinitely. Just yesterday, by minimizing energy output and constantly practicing the technique of reversing Cang, the technique of reversing Cang was finally raised to LV3. Congratulations, the spell reversal Cang has been upgraded. Spell reversal Cang LV3, 1/1000 create powerful suction, change the distance between multiple objects to negative infinity, and create a small black hole. At the moment of upgrading, Soo-Mew's mind came up with the advanced method of using the spell Cang. Through strong gravity, the distance between the starting point and the end point is compressed, achieving an effect similar to teleportation. So, just now, he took one step and was dozens of kilometers away in an instant. Please read and collect. Chapter 25 Emergency Meeting Against the White Devil. After the injuries in his body were completely healed, Soo-Mew flew towards New York. For him at this moment, this distance was nothing. Two arc reactors floated around Seo-mu under the effect of the unlimited spell. The huge energy released from them constantly helped him replenish his energy. There was even enough energy for the system to absorb and improve the template fusion degree. His main purpose of going to New York at this time was to kill Kingpin, the underground king who had caused him a lot of trouble at the beginning of his journey. The main reason for not looking for Kingpin at first was that he could not confirm his actions. Now that Six Eyes is about to be upgraded to level 3, and he has obtained teleportation and his mobility is extremely fast, he can explore the entire Hell's Kitchen in a short time. Kingpin has nowhere to hide in front of him. On the way to New York, Seo-mu kept urging Six Eyes with all his strength to observe the surrounding scenery, and Six Eyes' experience value was constantly increasing. Six Eyes experience +1. Six Eyes experience +1. Six Eyes experience +1. After arriving above New York, accompanied by the continuous prompts of the system, Six Eyes was upgraded to level 3. Six Eyes experience +1. Congratulations, your Six Eyes skill has been upgraded. Six Eyes LV3, 1/1000 with a 360-degree long-distance perspective, you can see the flow of energy. The amazing dynamic vision allows the holder to perform delicate energy operations, maximize the energy, and reduce unnecessary energy loss. A warm current flows out of the mind and then pours into the eyes. The already amazing visual range is rapidly improved, from the initial 500 meters to 2000 meters, which is 4 times higher than when it was LV2. Within a range of 2000 meters, everything is clearly visible. Even the perspective ability is greatly enhanced, and you can pass through several hard walls and see the specific scenery behind them. In addition, after upgrading to LV3, the Six Eyes has a new effect, reducing unnecessary energy consumption. In this way, Seo-mu's already long-lasting fighting time has been greatly improved again. After consuming all the information in his mind, Seo-mu grinned, took another step, and came to the sky above Hell's Kitchen. The game of hide and seek is about to begin. In a hidden military base, the satellite radar suddenly sounded an alarm. In the office of the Supreme Commander, a well-trained soldier reported in a panic. Report to the General, the satellite radar detected an unknown flying object flying towards New York at a high speed, with a maximum speed of Mach 5. What? The General was shocked. You know, the current maximum speed of a flying fighter is only about Mach 3. How could the speed of this unknown flying object reach Mach 5? Call up the satellite monitoring and lock the unknown flying object. I want to see what it is. As Tony Stark announced that he was Iron Man, more and more strange events have occurred recently, and all kinds of strange masked people are everywhere. Even if an unknown flying object with a speed of Mach 5 appears, the General will be too surprised. The soldier immediately controlled the satellite, focused the camera, and aimed it at the unknown flying object over Hell's Kitchen. When the scene on the screen was completely clear, they stared at everything in front of them in a daze. Even the General, who had encountered countless emergencies in his life, was stunned by the scene in front of him. A white-haired figure stood above Hell's Kitchen, his hands in his pockets, looking down at everything in front of him. This figure was very familiar to everyone present, because since the 3 reports were published, the military and the government have been under great pressure. In the past few days, all senior military officials have been studying the intelligence about the White Devil, trying to find his weaknesses. However, after several days of sleepless research, all senior military officials desperately discovered that the White Devil had no weaknesses at all. Extraordinary physique, energy absorption, azure black holes, black and red singularities, terrifying space defense. This is an absolutely perfect mutant. In the end, many senior officials who worked hard to study finally found that the White Devil seemed to have no ability to resist mental attacks, and immediately sent messengers to negotiate with Professor X, trying to use the students in Xavier's School for Gifted Youth to force him to kill Seo-mu. However, they later heard Professor X say, "The consciousness of the White Demon is like a chaos. I can't detect it at all, so naturally I can't attack it. Everyone didn't believe it until another mutant with psychic abilities who had defected to the military and had contacted the White Demon said the same thing. Only then did they completely believe that even Professor X couldn't do anything to the consciousness of the White Demon. This fact made the entire military at a loss. If even mental attacks can be perfectly resisted, then the White Demon has no weaknesses? How can there be such a perfect mutant? Because of this incident, the senior military officials held an emergency meeting the day before yesterday. In the meeting, Colonel Stryker emphasized the danger of the White Demon and talked about his growing ability and the possibility of ignoring nuclear bombs in the future. If it really comes to that time, facing the White Demon like a god, the government and the military will no longer have any power to resist, and the White Demon will establish a new government. It is precisely because of this sentence that the military and government officials are determined to use large-yield nuclear weapons to kill the White Demon and strangle the crisis in the cradle. But what is the situation now? Why did the speed of the White Devil suddenly increase so much? Now it is close to the maximum speed of Mach 5, which is faster than the fastest fighter jet. How could it be hit by a nuclear weapon? What should we do now? Isn't the careful layout of the military leaders a joke? At this moment, they suddenly saw that the White Devil in the picture suddenly looked up, as if he saw the surveillance satellite in outer space through a distance of tens of thousands of meters, and smiled grimly. They subconsciously stepped back several steps, and the general almost stumbled, because the White Devil in front of them seemed to be looking at them through the camera, and his appearance was right in front of them. The next moment, the White Devil ignored them, took another step, and disappeared from the spot. The general's forehead was covered with countless cold sweat, and he kept muttering to himself. No, no, the plan cannot be terminated. We must invest a larger nuclear bomb and launch a devastating attack on the White Devil, even if it destroys a city. In just a few days, the White Devil has become so terrifying. How far can it grow? Is it really necessary to make him a god on earth? Above Hell's Kitchen, Su-mu looked up at the sky. He felt that he was being spied on. This was the instinctive intuition given to him by the 6 eyes that were promoted to level 3. But Su-mu didn't care. It should be that the military discovered his whereabouts and used surveillance satellites to monitor him. He smiled kindly at the direction of the peeping that he intuitively sensed, and then took a step forward and disappeared from the spot. Jin Bing is still waiting for him. Please read and collect. Chapter 26 Hello, I and number 039, am looking for Jin Bing. Teleportation is an advanced means of reversing the spell Cang. Its basic principle is to use strong gravity to move instantaneously. But its essence is not a space jump, but the illusion of a space jump caused by extremely fast speed. During the action, Su-mu's body will move quickly until it reaches the marked end point. It is precisely because of this that the powerful acceleration will injure him who uses both mantra manipulation and energy absorption to strengthen his body. If an ordinary person moved in the same way, he would probably be crushed into a pulp immediately by the huge pressure. At this time, Su-mu was standing 500 meters above the ground. There was no object at this height. At the same time, he could use his 6 eyes to clearly see the scene on the ground, even in the basement. So Su-mu chose to teleport here to search Jin Bing's location. The control technique reversed the repulsive force of he, and he made a running start in the air. Su-mu grinned, and the azure power of the spell enveloped him. His body disappeared from the place in an instant, and appeared thousands of meters away. He drove away and disappeared again 30 seconds later. Inside Hell's Kitchen, in a dark alley, Spider-Woman solved a robbery incident, and then flew out of the alley on a spider's silk to continue looking for traces of crime. Suddenly, when she was being pulled by the spider thread and swinging upward, she suddenly noticed something from the corner of her eye. White hair, standing in the air, and vaguely visible blue pupils. White-haired devil! Why is he in Hell's Kitchen? Just when Gwen was about to go to confirm whether this was the white-haired devil, she suddenly discovered that the white-haired devil standing high in the sky had suddenly disappeared. Gwen immediately used the spider thread to reach the top of the tallest building nearby, looking for traces of the white-haired devil. With Spider-Woman's eyesight, she immediately spotted the white-haired demon that flashed every 30 seconds. Has he awakened a new ability? Gwen realized something immediately and couldn't help but said in shock. She was shocked and deeply envious at the same time. After becoming Spider-Woman, Gwen was very happy. She gained extraordinary abilities that ordinary people did not have. But just after she became Spider-Woman, she met the white-haired demon. The white-haired demon was not very strong at first, but it became stronger at an unimaginable speed in the following time, and she was still the original step forward. The most important thing is that her abilities are simple and violent, and except for the spider sense, she is not cool at all. And the white-haired demon's abilities, the azure black hole, and the black-red singularity, are much more powerful than hers in terms of power and performance. This made Gwen very frustrated, and she became curious about the white-haired demon, the first person to know Spider-Woman's true appearance. Why is he so strong? What is he doing at this time? Use teleport continuously, with an interval of 30 seconds each time. This time is enough for him to recover from the injuries caused by the teleport, and to fully explore the surrounding environment without missing anything. As time passed, Soo-Mew searched most areas of Hell's Kitchen. Having gained nothing, he gradually developed a bad feeling. Could it be that the Kingpin wasn't in Hell's Kitchen? But after teleporting again, a few seconds later, a bright smile appeared on Soo-Mew's face, and then he took another step forward and arrived in front of a luxurious private club. This private club store is extremely luxurious and is built in the best area of Hell's Kitchen. This area is located on the edge of Hell's Kitchen. Compared with deeper locations, the streets are cleaner and the security is better, so that rich people who cherish their lives dare to come here and have fun. The door of the club is spacious and grand, and all the people coming in and out are gentlemen in leather and leather shoes, which is incompatible with Soo-Mew, who wears spacious casual clothes. When Soo-Mew wanted to get closer, two security guards in suits at the gate came forward and stretched out their hands to signal Soo-Mew to stop. "Sir, this store is a high-end private club. You need to present an invitation letter and formal attire to enter." After finishing speaking, the security guard approached Soo-Mew and whispered in front of him. "Yellow-skinned monkey, get back here, this is not where you should be." Soo-Mew stopped and clearly caught the undisguised sarcasm in the security guard's eyes. He couldn't help but be a little curious. His photo had been in the most prominent places in major newspapers and news for a long time. Could it be that the security guard in front of him didn't recognize him and instead dared to mock him? However, he had no intention of explaining. Instead, he smiled brightly at the security guard who offended him, and then said slowly, "Please let me know, I'm looking for Kingpin." The security guard was stunned and finally couldn't help laughing. "Ha ha ha, who do you think you are? Dye your hair white and then wear matching sunglasses. Do you really think you are a white-haired demon?" Another security guard also mocked. "It seems we have to give this guy some color and make him sober up." A woman in gorgeous clothes who was just about to enter the club had her arm around an old man who was at least 70 years old. When she saw this scene, she laughed at Soo-Mew. "Husband, look, this yellow-skinned monkey actually wants to enter a private club. Doesn't he know that only a big shot like you can enter? Hey, throw him out quickly, don't taint our eyes." The old man on the side looked at Soo-Mew with disgust, and then said sternly to the two security guards, "Get rid of him quickly." The two security guards who were angry with Soo-Mew immediately lowered their heads and said in a low voice, "Don't worry, guest, we will deal with him right now." Soo-Mew looked at this scene and smiled slightly. Under the gaze of 6 eyes, Jin was locked by him. There was no possibility of escape, so he had the leisure to play with the few people in front of him at this time. Seeing several security guards punching him and hitting his face, Soo-mu remained unmoved and watched the funny scene in front of him with a smile. Suddenly, the whole place fell silent. When the fists of the two security guards landed 10 centimeters in front of the white-haired man, they immediately stopped and could not move forward, as if they were blocked by an invisible barrier. The faces of the two security guards who punched Soo-mu turned pale to the naked eye. The gorgeous woman and old man on the side also realized what the scene in front of them represented. He is really a white-haired devil. And not just an imitator. The gorgeous girl screamed in fear, thinking of the offense she had just committed against the white-haired demon. She quickly ran away, leaving the trembling old man beside her. The old man who was left on the spot lost his legs and lay on the ground. The turbid liquid slowly flowed out from his crotch, giving off a smell. He saw the white-haired demon in front of him stretched out his palm towards the fleeing woman, and then shook it slightly. The woman who had fled dozens of meters was crushed to the ground by the huge gravity. With the crackling sound of bones and the piercing wail of pain, she was slowly eased. Slowly press it into a meat paste. Soo-mu retracted her hand, smiled kindly at the two security guards who were stunned in front of her, and repeated, "I'm looking for Kingpin." Then I saw two security guards running towards the hall immediately and yelled, "I will inform you right now, please wait for a moment." Just when they were about to walk through the door and thought they had escaped, they suddenly heard the devil's whisper from behind them. "Forget it, I'd better go by myself." A terrifying repulsive force came from behind, and the two security guards were immediately knocked away by the huge force. They were like two cannonballs smashing into the private club, hitting several unlucky people, splashing scarlet blood mist, and died. Then Soo-mu walked into the clinic door and suddenly poked her head out from behind the door. "I'm sorry, I almost forgot about you." The aristocratic old man outside the door had no time to stop the smile on his face that had survived the disaster, and was twisted into twists by the terrifying gravity. Blood stains flowed from his body and continued to spread. After doing the last thing, Soo-mu finally walked into the club and smiled brightly at the many gun-wielding gang members waiting in front. "Hello, I'm looking for Kingpin." Chapter 27 I am too kind and cannot stand seeing the tragedy in the world. Seeing the white-haired devil breaking into the club, many gang members with guns hesitated to shoot, as if it was not them who were armed at this time, but the young man with a bright smile in front of him. They naturally knew the terror of the white-haired devil. Whether it was from the 3 news articles that shocked the world before, or from the 2 security guards who had just flown into the club at high speed and killed several unlucky people, and now only the broken bodies of the 2 security guards were left. Show the power of the white-haired devil with absolute facts. Seeing no response from the many gang members in front of him, Soo-mu sighed and lowered his head slightly. His face was covered by the shadow of the light, and he could only see the corners of his mouth gradually showing a cold smile. "Then I'll find him myself." Hearing this, one of the gang members could no longer bear the pressure, pressed the trigger, and started shooting wildly. Others heard the sudden piercing sound of gunfire and were so stimulated in their tense state that they subconsciously shot at Soo-mu as well. Countless ammunition flew towards Soo-mu like a curtain of rain, but stopped within 10 centimeters of him, unable to get any closer to him. After this strange phenomenon appeared, a gang member immediately recognized this as the white-haired devil's signature ability. No lower limit technique. No, the white-haired demon cannot be defeated at all. I don't want to die. He could no longer face the white-haired devil. Faced with the fear of death, he dropped his rifle and tried to escape. Since the first gang member threw his gun and ran away, other gang members immediately followed. They knew to some extent the terror of the white-haired devil from the news, and naturally knew that in the eyes of the white-haired devil, they were no different from ants. Regardless of the quantity, it can be easily crushed to death. Seeing the many gang members fleeing in all directions, Soo-mu grinned. A huge repulsive force suddenly erupted from around his body, and the yellow bullets floating around returned faster than when they came. Countless bullets exceeded the speed of sound, hitting each body with a harsh sound of breaking through the air. In just an instant, most of the gang members were killed by random bullets, while the remaining gang members lay on the bright, glowing floor and kept howling. Su-mu couldn't hear these screams, so she held her hand forward slightly. The technique reverses Cang. A blue black hole emerged out of thin air, attracting everything nearby. The black hole created by Cang at level 3 was once again enlarged several times compared to the one at level 2. At this time, the size of the black hole seemed to have grown from the size of a basketball to the size of 1 meter, and the attraction it exuded was also several times stronger than before, sucking in all the surrounding gang members who were dead or incapacitated. The screams all around stopped immediately. Su-mu also couldn't bear to see the tragic scene full of blood in front of him, so a 1-meter-sized blue black hole quickly rotated around him, attracting everything nearby. The luxurious club that originally stood there disappeared in an instant, and was replaced by a huge circular pit. On the luminous floor that was still intact in the center of the circular pit, the white-haired demon straightened his back, put his right hand in his pocket, and held his smooth white hair with his left hand and moved it upward, revealing his exquisite blue eyes. But at this time, those eyes were full of coldness, and the customers who had luckily escaped in the distance could not stop trembling all over. They heard the white-haired devil in the ruins say with satisfaction, "It's still so comfortable. Sure enough, I'm still too kind and don't want to see the tragedy in the world." Surviving customers. Do you want to listen to what you are saying? Su-mu continued to move forward. According to the detection of 6 eyes, Jin Bing had already escaped for some distance, but it was not difficult to catch up with his current speed. Taking one step forward, the figure disappeared from the spot and walked through hundreds of meters of ruins to the street. He used the magic technique to reverse age to create a repulsive force equal to gravity, and walked in the void in the sky. Every step he took appeared dozens of meters away. After a moment, he saw a speeding armored car in the distance. The 6 eyes emitted a bright aura, which could be seen clearly even in the dazzling sunlight. Then he stretched out his palm to make a pistol gesture, pointed his index finger in the direction of the armored car, and whispered softly with the flash of black and red singularities. Thumping! Kingpin was sitting behind an armored car. Even an armored car made of special materials that could withstand rocket attacks could not give him any sense of security. Facing an opponent who was like a god, if it weren't for his iron will that had been tempered for many years, he might have collapsed by now. But he is not immortal after all. Even if he knows it is almost impossible to escape, he will definitely try. Moreover, they are not absolutely powerless to resist. Jin Bin looked behind him with deep eyes. I just hope that the device that I spent billions of dollars on can work, otherwise. The armored car speeds up, with 2 rows of propellers extending from the rear of the car, driving forward at a faster speed. Just when Su-mu was about to deal with Jin Bin directly, he suddenly heard the harsh sound of electricity coming from his ears, and then found that the energy in his body suddenly lost control and became chaotic, and he fell from a height of tens of meters. What happened? However, on the way down, with the exquisite control of the 6 eyes, he immediately regained control of the energy in his body. When he was about to stand in the void again, he suddenly found 2 figures rushing towards him from 2 different directions. Ha ha ha, white-haired devil, you are just an ordinary person after losing your mutant abilities. I, the Prowler, won the achievement of killing the white-haired demon. On the other side, a beautiful shadow flew over with spider silk and shouted loudly. Careful! Seeing this scene, Su-mu immediately realized what had happened, and then showed a smile full of evil. He did not continue to use repulsion to stand in the air, but allowed his body to fall naturally. And at the same time, he discovered that the armored car in the distance stopped at the same time, and looked at its appearance and wanted to return. Then give them a surprise. After Spider-Woman saw the white-haired demon, she quickly rushed in his direction. Just when she was about to get close, she suddenly found the Prowler in a black tights and suddenly pressed a button behind the white-haired demon. The sound of electric current immediately resounded throughout the surrounding area. The body of the white-haired demon who looked like a god in the sky suddenly stopped, and the black-red singularity that was about to be launched also disappeared and fell rapidly downwards. It was obvious that the harsh sound of electricity just did something to the white-haired demon to cause this situation. Then she discovered that the prowler used sharp claws to rush towards the white-haired demon who had no resistance at this time, and his tone was full of cruelty. So she sped up and stepped forward, kicking the prowler away when he was about to kill the white-haired demon. Then she held Su Mu in her arms while panting violently. Only then did she relax and say, "Fortunately, I almost missed it." At the same time, Su Mu, who felt the two soft balls, also breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. Fortunately, the fun almost ended. Please read and collect. Chapter 28 The White Devil Who Lost His Mutant Ability. Gwen carefully placed Su Mu on the ground and asked with concern. "What happened to you? Why did you suddenly fall from the sky?" Su Mu showed off her exquisite acting skills, controlling her body with the exquisite control of her 6 eyes, and her expression and body details were flawless. No, why did my mutant powers suddenly disappear?" The wanderer in the distance laughed loudly when he heard Su Mu's helpless words. "Ha ha ha, you didn't expect that we purchased a mutant suppression device secretly developed by the military. At this time, your mutant abilities will be suppressed for at least an hour. In this hour, you are no different from ordinary people. 1 bullet can kill you. And I, the Prowler, am the one who kills the demon." As soon as he finished speaking, the Prowler turned into an afterimage and rushed towards Su Mu at high speed, but was stopped by Gwen. Seeing Spider-Woman blocking him, Prowler said with a cold expression, "It's you, Spider-Woman, again. This time I'll kill you and the white-haired demon at the same time." The next moment, the two of them were fighting together. There was no winner for a short period of time, but it was only temporary. Several figures in the distance were rushing towards the place at high speed. They should also be Jin Bin's men. Su Mu saw several familiar figures among them. The supervillain Tombstone has invulnerability and the ability to heat up his body, the supervillain Scorpion, who wears high-tech armor like the Prowler, and the female Dr. Octopus who welds 4 high-tech mechanical tentacles behind her. Gwen also saw the 3 supervillains coming. She kicked the Prowler away, used spider silk to wrap him around a street lamp, then hugged Su Mu and fled away from him while swinging the spider silk. "How long do you have to recover?" Spider-Woman tried to get rid of the supervillain behind her, but she needed to avoid the shooting of a large number of gang members who suddenly appeared, so she could not keep the distance, but got closer and closer. Hearing Gwen's words, Su Mu smiled nonchalantly. "I don't know. It will probably take a while, but it may be restored in the next moment." Hearing Su Mu's unreasonable words, Gwen was so angry that she had the idea of leaving the white-haired demon behind. However, thinking that the white-haired demon had saved her, the kind-hearted Gwen still did not do so. She said angrily, "Can you be serious? If they catch up, you will be dead." Su Mu was a little innocent. "What I said is true. The mutant suppression device can only suppress Su Mu's abilities as a mutant. Except for energy absorption, other abilities have not disappeared and can still be used. And the energy absorption is also recovering at an extremely fast speed, and it can be fully recovered in about 5 minutes, far less than the hour," the Prowler said. So what he and Gwen said was not wrong. He can use his abilities at any time. Doesn't this mean that he can recover at any time? Of course, the kind-hearted Gwen didn't know that she was being teased by the hateful white-haired man. At this time, she had no extra energy to communicate with Su Mu, because all the villains were chasing her. Laugh. The Prowler broke free from the shackles of the spider silk with the help of his companions. At this time, he, who was the fastest, caught up and used a flying knife to cut off Spider-Woman's spider silk, so that Su Mu fell to the ground and were killed. Surrounded by many supervillains. Seeing so many supervillains, Gwen suddenly felt a lot of pressure, but she was still optimistic. "Oh, the situation is very bad, I don't know what to do. Su-mu, who was held in Gwen's arms, cheered. Believe in yourself, you can do it. If it doesn't work, I still have everything. Before Gwen could say anything, Prowler mocked. White-haired devil, it's hard for you to protect yourself when you lose your mutant ability, and you still want to protect others. You can't protect anything. Scorpion, who was wrapped in exoskeleton armor, looked at Su-mu with a mocking look on his face. Is he the white-haired devil? Nothing more than that. Little spider, white-haired boy, it's time to die. Several mechanical limbs of Scorpion's lower body stretched out at the same time, and then rushed towards Su-mu and Su-mu. The tail needle behind him raised up and stabbed Gwen suddenly, trying to kill her and Su-mu together. Just as Gwen escaped the attack of the Scorpion's tail needle, she was hit by Dr. Octopus's mechanical tentacles and was knocked away. Su-mu, who she had been hugging, was also knocked away and separated from her. Su-mu used the physical strength of an ordinary person to land smoothly, then immediately stood up and looked at the distant sky. In the sight of Lu Yan, a helicopter had been hovering 10 kilometers away from here. At that distance, even with LV-36I vision, he could only see blurry shadows. If Su-mu hadn't intuitively told him that he was being monitored by a distant aircraft at this time, he might not have been able to detect it at all. Su-mu gradually became impatient. The helicopter had been staying there for a long time, and there was a high probability that it would not come closer. Gwen, who was attacked by several supervillains from a distance, was at an absolute disadvantage and was unable to take care of Su-mu. The Prowler came to Su-mu and smiled ferociously at him. The arrogant white-haired devil is going to die here. I think today will be the fourth news that shocks the world. Seeing that Su-mu didn't even take him seriously at this moment, but looked far away, this feeling of being ignored made the Prowler extremely angry. How arrogant, but it's better this way. Your screams will make me more happy later. The Wanderer rushed towards Su-mu, but before he could get close, Gwen appeared again and stood in front of Su-mu. Maybe you don't have a chance to kill him. Looking at the injuries on Gwen's body, the Wanderer showed a cruel smile. No, you will all die here. A purple light flashed under the Wanderer's feet, and his already amazing speed increased again, rushing towards Su-mu and the others. Gwen wanted to pull Su-mu to dodge, but the previous injuries suddenly flared up, and her body froze for a moment. In this moment of delay, the Wanderer appeared in front of her and stabbed her abdomen with his sharp claws. Go to hell! The claws were too close to Gwen, and even with Spider-Woman's agility, it was impossible to dodge. Gwen could only watch the claws approach, about to pierce her abdomen, and then kill her and the white-haired demon together. But at this moment, Gwen suddenly felt her eyes blurred, and she found a tall figure blocking her, and then she heard an impatient magnetic voice from the front. It seems that it will not get closer. It's boring, wasting my time. Then Gwen saw the white-haired man who suddenly appeared and stretched his hand forward, and the body of the Wanderer immediately stopped in front of him. The white-haired man gently waved his arms, and a strong repulsive force burst out. Everything in front of him, including the body of the Wanderer, was blown away by the huge force. Gwen stared blankly at the Wanderer who was crushed into meat paste by the huge force, and looked at the fan-shaped ruins dozens of meters long in front of him. She swallowed unconsciously, and finally heard the man in front of her muttering. Tisk tisk tisk, are Kingpin and the helicopter starting to escape? This won't do. It seems that we have to speed up to deal with these people. Please read and collect. Chapter 29 Killing Jin Bing. The Scorpion, the female Dr. Octopus and the Tombstone in the distance were stunned, wondering what was going on. Wasn't the white-haired devil's mutant ability temporarily suppressed? Why did he recover in less than an hour? Among them was a Tombstone with invulnerability, and his whole body couldn't stop trembling. He looked at the huge fan-shaped ruins in front of him, at the body of the Prowler that had no human form in it, and at his right arm that disappeared just because of the aftermath of the attack. Ah, After realizing it, he immediately screamed in pain, and a large amount of blood spurted out from his broken arm. His previously indestructible body could not give him any sense of security. He instinctively wanted to escape from here, but after taking a step, he found that one of his legs had also disappeared. The next moment, his body lost balance and fell to the ground. The female Dr. Octopus and Scorpion who were farther away did not suffer much damage, but were scratched by scattered stone fragments. But they seemed to be seriously injured and did not dare to move at all. They stared blankly at the scene in front of them, looking at the tombstone whose body was crippled only by the aftermath of the attack. As supervillains who work for Kingpin together, even if their relationship is not friendly, they still recognize Tombstone's strength. His invulnerable body and the superpower of high temperature on the body allow him to exert extremely strong fighting ability, even they can't do anything to him. However, how could it become such a tragic situation after just being hit by the aftermath? What about your superpower? What about that indestructible body that makes you proud? As smart people, they immediately understood the current situation. Facing the white-haired demon with mutant abilities, they were no match at all. Escape. Run away quickly. It's too late if you don't escape. However, just when the female Dr. Octopus and Scorpion turned around, they stopped again and did not dare to move at all. Gwen looked at the scene in front of her. Even though she had seen it in the Global Daily Report, after being there, she could feel the majesty of this power even more. Is this the true strength of the white-haired devil? What exactly has he experienced during this time, and why has he grown so quickly? Just when she wanted to ask the white-haired devil a question, she suddenly found that the white-haired devil came in front of him, put his hand on her head, and the magnetic voice came from him at the same time. "Thank you, little spider, leave the rest to me." As soon as she finished speaking, Gwen saw the white-haired demon step forward, disappear from the place, and instantly appeared in front of the female Dr. Octopus and Scorpion who were trying to escape, showing them a bright smile. "You two, you haven't returned the gift yet, don't leave in a hurry." Before he finished speaking, Su-mu stretched out his palm towards Scorpion, and powerful attraction radiated from his palm, attracting Scorpion. The Scorpion looked desperate, then showed determination, using its sharp joints and sharp tail needles to attack the white-haired demon at the same time. Even if he is destined to die, he will make the white-haired devil pay the price. Now that the white-haired demon has just recovered, he may not be able to perfectly control his mutant abilities. This is his chance. And his tail needle and arthropods are highly poisonous. As long as he hits the white-haired demon, there may be a glimmer of hope. However, he only felt a blue stream of light flashing past his eyes, and then he discovered that the white-haired demon was holding a huge tail needle and stabbing towards his head rapidly. Looking at the body again, the tail needle and 6 thick-jointed limbs at the tail disappeared from the armor, appearing scattered around, piercing into the surrounding ground. The largest tail needle among them appeared in the hands of the white-haired demon, and the needle with a cold light was aimed at his head. Just as he was about to say something, his head was penetrated, and a large amount of blood spurted out, floating in the air. 10 centimeters in front of Su-mu stood still. After dealing with the Scorpion, Su-mu looked at the female Dr. Octopus and found that while he was dealing with the Scorpion, she had arrived several hundred meters away. This distance is extremely difficult even for a sniper rifle to hit, but for him with 6 eyes, it couldn't be easier. A coin was thrown out by him, and then floated in front of his index finger. Black and red lightning burst out from the fingertips, giving the coin an initial speed several times the speed of sound. Before the coin melted due to air friction, it instantly hit the female Dr. Octopus on the back. The coin with powerful kinetic energy enveloped her with a sonic boom, cutting her body off at the waist. After continuing to fly for hundreds of meters, she completely melted in the air. Then Su-mu took another step forward and appeared in front of the tombstone crawling on the ground. When the tombstone looked up tremblingly, he saw a shadow falling from the sky, and his consciousness immediately turned into nothingness. After crushing the head on the tombstone, Su-mu turned around and smiled brightly at Gwen, stepped out and appeared dozens of meters in the air, and walked toward the armored car in the distance in the void. On top of the armored car, Jin Bin sat there with a gloomy expression. The mutant suppression device that cost billions of dollars to purchase can only suppress the white-haired demon for a few minutes. Is the white-haired demon too powerful? Or was he deceived? Damn, damn! Suddenly, he saw a young man with white hair appearing in the armored car in front, smiling brightly at him. It's the white-haired devil. The next moment, the expensive armored car hit the white-haired demon that suddenly appeared and stopped immediately. Under the pressure of the huge kinetic energy, the front half of the car quickly shriveled up. The driver only had time to scream, before he was crushed and a large amount of blood spattered on Kingpin's face. Then he heard a sharp sound of metal tearing. Crack! The white-haired man used his hands to tear the entire armored train in half, and his body was exposed to the devil. Jin Bing immediately picked up his pistol and shot at the white-haired devil, but the bullet and the driver's blood splattered all stayed in front of the white-haired devil and could not move forward. Seeing this scene, he calmed down completely and said in a low voice, "I was wrong about what happened before. I am willing to use all my assets in exchange for my life." But the white-haired devil did not respond, and still slowly approached. Every footstep seemed to step on Jin Bing's heart, causing his heart to stop. Jin Bing was obviously more anxious, and immediately continued. "If I die, all those assets will be frozen, and you can't get them at all. That's tens of billions of dollars in assets." But the footsteps didn't stop until they came to him. Then he saw a white palm stopped in front of him. Before he wanted to say anything else, a terrifying pressure came from it, directly plunging him into eternal darkness. A large amount of unknown flesh and blood floated around Su-mu's body, and then was pushed around by the huge repulsive force, dyeing a large area nearby red. Su-mu grinned. "If you have the obelisk, infinity gems, frost box, eternal spear, eternal flame, or eye of Agamotto, I can torture you and let you live longer. But no matter how much money a mortal has, it is useless to me." Then he took another step forward, disappeared on the spot, and flew towards the helicopter in the distance at high speed. Please read and collect it. Chapter 30. He stood in the sky, looking down on everything. On a helicopter in the distance, several scientific researchers wearing white research uniforms continued to record the precious data they had just observed. These data are important weapons against the white-haired devil in the future, so they must not be lost. The leading researcher dialed the communication, and the communication was immediately connected. An impatient, hoarse voice came from the other side. "How about it?" The researcher's tone revealed excitement that could not be concealed. "Colonel Stryker, it worked. The mutant suppression device is also effective against the white-haired demon. Although it can only suppress him for a few minutes, as long as it is improved, this time will be greatly increased. At that time, as long as the mutant suppression device is used on the white-haired devil, he will become an ordinary mortal for a long time." "Okay, okay." Upon hearing the news, Stryker was overjoyed, and even a stiff smile appeared on his face that had not changed for thousands of years. It seems that the nuclear bomb plan does not need to be implemented. To deal with a mere white-haired devil, the mutant suppression device is enough. Transfer all the data and start developing a device to suppress the white-haired devil from now on. Yes. At this moment, Stryker suddenly heard a loud noise coming from the other side. What happened? Then he heard the researcher's trembling voice. "Quick, quick, turn on the mutant suppression device and give us time to escape. Colonel Stryker, the white-haired devil is coming after him." "What?" Upon hearing the news, Stryker looked stunned and couldn't believe what he heard. The white-haired devil can actually spot a helicopter 10 kilometers away. What does this mean? This means that the white-haired devil's perception is more terrifying than he imagined, and he can observe things at least 10 kilometers away. This also means that the nuclear bomb plan has almost completely failed, because at the speed of the white-haired devil, as long as a nuclear bomb is discovered 10 kilometers away, it can be easily avoided. Nuclear bombs will no longer threaten him. Damn it, when did the white-haired demon awaken his senses again? Is there no limit to his abilities? Don't worry, just send the data over. You have a mutant suppression device. It's not difficult to escape. Stryker comforted the researchers and wanted them to quickly send information about the white-haired demon. His main purpose is still for those data. After the data is obtained, these researchers lose their value. But what he said was what he was thinking. Researchers with mutant suppression devices can easily escape as long as they can temporarily suppress the white-haired demon's mutant abilities. However, a desperate shout came from the headset. He stopped 5 kilometers away. At such a long distance, today's version of the mutant suppression device cannot affect him at all. No, he's attacking us, that weird black-red singularity. Ah! After a scream, the communication was immediately cut off. Stryker was silent. It seemed that the white-haired demon had discovered the existence of the mutant suppression device, and then used black and red magic points to kill the researchers from a distance. This also means that the white-haired demon will be prepared for the suppression device in the future. But this also means another thing, that is, the white-haired demon is still affected by the suppression device. As long as his ability is successfully suppressed, the white-haired demon will no longer be a threat. Looking at the transmission completed letters on the screen in front of him, Stryker showed a ferocious smile. Continuously using the magic technique to teleport Cang, he approached the helicopter at high speed. Not long after, the helicopter appeared in Sumyu's field of vision again. He did not get close to the helicopter because he guessed that there should also be a mutant suppression device on the helicopter. Although after his ability was suppressed, he with 6 eyes remembered the energy flow in his body when he was suppressed, and could remanipulate the energy in his body at the moment when his mutant ability was suppressed and get rid of the suppression, but he still did not intend to approach the helicopter. Create a weakness for yourself, and then wait for the enemy to take advantage of this weakness to attack you. The enemy's reaction will be very pleasant. Sumyu stopped in the air. At this time, this position was still about 5 kilometers away from the helicopter. It was also the farthest range of the suppression device that he could observe using his 6 eyes. Stretching out his palm, he put his index and middle fingers together and pointed at the helicopter. The magic power started to work, and a black and red singularity quickly formed in front of him. As the finger was slightly raised, the terrifying black-red singularity flew out at high speed, forming a black-red ray visible to the naked eye in the air. The technique reverses H. Terrifying black-red rays pierced the sky, leaving a strange-colored meteor trail in the sky, followed by a loud noise that broke the sound barrier and enveloped the entire New York. Almost everyone looked towards the sky at the same time, and they saw a gorgeous black meteor carrying death, flying straight towards a poor and helpless helicopter. Boom! Under the gaze of everyone who could see the scene, the helicopter was instantly shattered by the terrifying black meteor and turned into an inconspicuous fire. And the black meteor continued to fly forward, piercing the air, splitting the clouds, and sinking into the countryside outside the city, splashing huge amounts of dust. Finally, the dust slowly dispersed, leaving a huge circular depression. It's the white-haired devil, it's the white-haired devil. People immediately recognized the strongest mutant who had dominated the news recently, and the whole city fell into chaos. The white-haired demon can actually fly. Is there really no limit for a level 5 mutant? His strength seems to have become stronger again. Where is the government, where is the military? Didn't they say they have formulated a perfect plan to deal with the white-haired demon? In an empty warehouse in New York, you can see the black meteor and the white-haired demon standing in the air. North Star stared at the scene in front of her blankly, and immediately recalled the scene when she met the white-haired demon before. The extremely cold eyes released an unparalleled sense of oppression. Even though her ability was already powerful among mutants, she still had no power to resist the white-haired demon. In particular, his ruthless words made her remember deeply, and let her know from that time that if she wanted to make mutants rise, she could not rely on others, but only on herself. At this moment, the companions around Polaris exclaimed. "Look, that's the mutant ability of the white-haired demon. Wow, so cool, is this the strongest mutant at present? We must also work hard to help the great white-haired demon in the future battle with humans. Under his leadership, mutants will eventually gain freedom." Polaris hesitated, not knowing whether to tell the cruel facts to the companions around him. In front of the white-haired demon, even if they are all mutants and the same kind, but they are just ants like ordinary humans. That man, he stood in the sky, looking down on everything. At the same time, Su-mu, who was standing in the void high in the sky, heard the system prompt. Spell reversal he experience +1. Congratulations, your skill spell reversal he has been upgraded. Please read and collect it. Chapter 31 An invitation from the X-Men. Spell reversal he LV2, 1/300, the repulsive force is generated with he as the center. The minimum power is twice that of Cang, and the maximum output is positive infinity, which is similar to a small supernova. A large amount of information poured into Su-mu's mind, and his experience in using the reversal technique he increased rapidly. Su-mu once again used the spell to reverse he, and a black-red singularity formed above the index finger. The size grew from the size of a mung bean to the size of a table tennis ball, and the repulsive force it emitted also increased several times. Looking at the black-red singularity on his fingertips, Su-mu couldn't help but miss the Hulk and hate him before. Of all the fights he's been through, they have the best feel. That solid feeling of endurance is something he can never forget. Wait a minute, I overheard the conversation between Coulson and Nico Fury. A strange crater appeared in New Mexico, and a hammer that no one can pick up is located in the center of the crater. Doesn't this mean that the hammer god has been exiled by Odin and has come to Earth at this time? Presumably the hammer god who has regained his power should be more resistant to being fucked, while the destroyer armor controlled by Loki is even more resistant. They will be good targets. The corner of Su-mu's mouth curved into a subtle arc. New fun is here. Find Spider-Woman again. She is no longer where she was, but on a tall building. Although Spider-Woman didn't help him, he would never be in danger, but he was still very grateful to Spider-Woman Su-mu for helping him. Without her help, the fact that he was immune to the mutant suppression device would have been impossible to hide, which would undoubtedly have taken a lot of the fun out of him. Thank you for your help. I will give you a gift next time we meet to express my gratitude. Gwen's curiosity was aroused by Su-mu's words. She was curious about what the gift of the powerful white-haired demon would be. Then she heard the charming Mr. Devil smile mysteriously. Keep looking forward to it, I believe you will really like it. Gwen wanted to say something more, but then she saw the white-haired devil step out and disappear in front of her, disappearing without a trace. It wasn't until the white-haired devil disappeared from her front that she remembered that she had just forgotten to ask the white-haired devil why he became stronger so fast. Then we'll wait until the next time we meet. I'm really looking forward to it. Gwen hummed a song, jumped down from the tall building, and left in the same way while hanging on spider silk. Su-mu was not in a hurry to go to New Mexico immediately, but came to a high-end restaurant to taste the food. At level 3, he can't use energy to replace food, but he should be able to do it at level 4. However, even if he can use energy to maintain life functions, he will not refuse to eat. Eating is undoubtedly a great enjoyment. With Su-mu's current appetite, it would cost tens of thousands of dollars to eat in a high-end restaurant. However, this money was just a drop in the bucket to him now, and he didn't take it seriously. As his strength gradually becomes stronger, it becomes easier and easier for him to obtain money. After walking out of the restaurant, Su-mu was about to head to New Mexico to find the hammer god for fun, when he suddenly found several familiar figures in front of him. There is a slight difference in the appearance of these people compared with those in the movie. If their features were not obvious and they were gathered together, Su-mu might not be able to recognize them. Yes, the people standing in front of Su-mu and blocking his path were none other than members of the X-Men. Among them was Professor X, a kindly old man in a wheelchair who had extremely strong telepathic abilities. Behind him, helping him push the wheelchair, was Cyclops wearing special sunglasses, and beside him were the red-haired Phoenix and the white-haired Storm. X-Men? What do you want from me? Su-mu asked in confusion. Apart from having the same enemy, Stryker, he had no interaction with the X-Men. Professor. He couldn't sense the consciousness of the young man in front of him at all, just like an ant standing on an elephant and unable to see the elephant. Because it is an endless land to it. The moment he saw the white-haired demon, Professor X understood that the young man in front of him was a more terrifying existence than Qin. Even when facing Qin, he could sense the existence of Qin's spirit, but when facing the white-haired demon, his ability completely failed. Upon hearing Su-mu's question, Professor X showed a kind expression, and then said slowly, "Child, I would like to invite you to join Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. The children in this school are mutants just like you. If you join the school, you will never be alone again. And you are now in a very dangerous situation. The government and the military have formulated a plan against you. Even if your mutant ability is very strong, you are still no match for them. Join us and the X-Men will negotiate with the government and the military to help you cancel your wanted order." The three Cyclops people around looked at Su-mu confidently. They were all sure that if the white-haired demon was not a fool, he would definitely agree to join Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. First, they are all mutants. They know what it feels like to be disgusted by others around you after becoming a mutant, and they know the loneliness of being abandoned by the whole world. Mutants crave their own kind. Second, the white-haired demon was wanted by the government and the military. Although he was very powerful, he was definitely not an opponent in the face of the full pursuit of the military and the government, and the attacks of a large number of mutants of different types. When facing the pursuit team sent by Stryker before, the white-haired demon was almost killed. He must have understood this matter. As long as the white-haired demon is brought to Xavier's School for Gifted Youth, the professor will educate him and change his current violent character. By then, the X-Men will have a very powerful fighting force. Cyclops and others are looking forward to that day. However, the response of the white-haired demon shattered their self-righteous fantasy and made them realize that they had never understood the white-haired demon. "Sorry, I don't feel lonely, and I'm not interested in joining Xavier's School for Gifted Youth." Cyclops looked at the white-haired demon in disbelief. He didn't expect him to say such a thing. This was completely incomprehensible to him, who was called a monster by his classmates after awakening his mutant ability. If you don't stay with mutants, won't you be called a monster by others? Won't you be hated by others? And what about the arrest from the military? Even you can't face the attack of so many mutants whose specific abilities are unknown. Then he saw the corner of the white-haired demon's mouth gradually raised an arc, and this arc became bigger and bigger until it became unbridled. "Ha ha ha! They insult me, kill! They chase me, kill! They condemn me, still kill! I believe that as the death toll increases, they will gradually realize their mistakes, change their minds, and finally draw such a conclusion the white-haired demon is an upright and kind legal citizen." Please read and collect. Chapter 32 Black Phoenix, White Devil, you are too extreme. You. Cyclops looked at Su-mu in shock. He didn't expect the White Devil to say such a thing. You are such a devil." Phoenix Girl and Storm Girl were equally shocked as they looked at the white demon in front of them, the unbridled smile on his face, and the cold blue eyes, and unknowingly, goosebumps had already spread all over their bodies. This time, they finally understood what the professor said. If the White Devil is left alone, it will eventually cause irreparable consequences. Even though he knew that the White Devil had gradually fallen to the wrong path, "Professor, we cannot let him go on, otherwise he will be a walking natural disaster in the near future. Thinking of what is very likely to happen in the future, Professor X suddenly looked serious and said in a deep voice. "Su-mu, you have entered the wrong path and cannot continue to fall. You have the power to overturn the world. This power should be used on the right path, not just killing. Killing cannot solve the problem, it will only make it more complicated and more anxious, leading to an even more irreversible situation." Cyclops, Storm, and Phoenix all nodded deeply. They very much recognized Professor X's ideas. Peace that can only be maintained by violence is unstable. Only by using peaceful means to make mutants and ordinary people live in peace can such peace last. They have been fighting for this concept, constantly stopping the evil plans of the Brotherhood of Mutants, and establishing the X-Men to fight crime and change ordinary people's stereotypes of mutants. Of course, saving the White Devil from the wrong path is also included, and it has even become the most important goal of the X-Men in the near future. After hearing Professor X's words, Su-mu looked thoughtful. "Yes, you are right. Peace maintained by violence cannot last long." After hearing Su-mu's words, the expressions of Professor. "Now that I heard the professor's advice, I immediately woke up." But suddenly, the white demon in front of him once again showed his familiar ferocious smile, which gave Professor X and the others a bad premonition. Is there another possibility? That is not violent enough or brutal enough. That means strength is far from enough. As long as I am strong enough, just by existing, I can subdue all dissatisfied voices. As long as I stand there, no one dares to say a word no. Then that will be enough, then there will be true peace. Professor. Among them, the one Su-mu paid the most attention to was the Phoenix girl. There was a flash of scarlet in her eyes. However, the Black Phoenix was still sealed by Professor X, and the Phoenix girl at this time was far from Su-mu's opponent. When the ordinary people around saw this scene, they immediately screamed and fled away. In a short time, only Su-mu and the X-Men who were confronting him were left on the street. Facing two level 5 mutants, a level 4 mutant, and an accompanying level 3 little Karami, Su-mu smiled slightly and took a step forward. His blue pupils flashed with aura, and huge repulsive force emanated from him, spreading to the surroundings at extremely high speeds, destroying everything around him. Terrifying dense cracks spread from Su-mu's feet, covering dozens of meters around the area. Only a small area in front where the X-Men were located survived. Storm Girl immediately created strong winds and cooperated with Phoenix Girl's telekinesis to resist the huge repulsive force. However, facing such a powerful repulsive force, she could only keep retreating. Seeing this scene, Cyclops immediately took off his special glasses, and two thick laser rays shot out from his pupils, rushing straight towards the arrogant white demon in front. However, the laser beam, which can easily cut steel, suddenly slowed down when it was 10 centimeters away from the White Devil, and could only spread towards the White Devil at an extremely slow speed. Su-mu curiously looked at the laser that was slowly spreading towards her. Sure enough, the unlimited spell could not completely resist the laser attack, at least not the LV2 unlimited spell. However, as the level increases, the unlimited spells will surely be able to easily withstand laser attacks, poison attacks, and even space attacks. But at this time, the laser attack still needs to be dealt with. Under the shocked gaze of Cyclops, Su-mu used a palm to cover the path of the laser. After the laser beam spread with difficulty and hit the flesh and blood body, it was unable to penetrate the flesh and blood body. Instead, it moved at a speed visible to the naked eye. Dim it down. What? Cyclops looked at everything in front of him in shock, and even suspected that there was something wrong with his mutant ability. Why can he block my laser with his flesh and blood? The knowledgeable Professor X immediately discovered the problem and... No, he is not forcibly blocking your laser, but absorbing the energy contained in your laser. What? After hearing Professor X's explanation, Phoenix Girl and Storm Girl were even more shocked. Professor, Doesn't the White Devil's energy-absorbing mutant ability only absorb a small part of the energy? Why can even Scott's laser be absorbed at this time? Professor X, who was questioned by them, looked extremely serious. Now there was only one explanation. The mutant ability of the White Devil can become stronger over time, and he will also gain new mutant abilities over time. And his tendency to become stronger seems to have no limit, and the speed is getting faster and faster. Hearing Professor X's analysis, Phoenix Girl and the other two couldn't believe it, but if this explanation was given, everything about the White Devil could be effectively explained. Looking at Su-mu, the tough X-Men actually showed a hint of fear. Is there really such a terrifying mutant ability? Even a level 5 mutant can't do this. At this time, their thoughts gradually unified, that is, no matter how expensive the price is, they must stop the White Devil and pull him into the right path. Because they finally discovered that when the White Devil is completely out of control, the result will not only be a huge disaster, but it is very likely to be the destruction of the world. In a red sea of consciousness, a figure with red hair and red eyes observed the outside world through the eyes of the Phoenix Girl. She stared blankly at the white-haired figure in front of her and listened to Professor X's shocking analysis. The Black Phoenix looked at the White Devil in disbelief. Under Professor X's constant persuasion, she also had the idea of whether she was too extreme, and she also hated her own overly powerful power. But at this moment, she just wanted to say, "What am I? That guy is the real devil, he is too extreme." Please read and collect. Chapter 33 Unlimited Technique Level 3. The power of the spell strengthens the body, the energy absorption absorbs the energy in the laser beam, and the reversal of the spell repairs the constantly damaged palm. With a series of strengthening, Su-mu can use only his flesh and blood to resist the laser beam that can easily penetrate steel. The system prompts kept coming to his ears. Energy point +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Unlimited spell experience +1. Compared to reaching LV3, it is more difficult to gain experience with energy absorption, and the experience of the unlimited spell of level 2 is only LV2. It is rapidly increasing and has reached the edge of upgrading in a short time. Su-mu used his palm to resist the laser, and then took another step forward. The terrifying pressure suddenly surged, and the powerful repulsive force from the reversal of the spell he spread to hundreds of meters around, and a large number of buildings along the way were crushed and collapsed by the powerful repulsive force. Everything disappeared with the Devil's Step. Faced with the sudden surge of repulsive force, even Storm and Phoenix could not resist this huge repulsive force together. The X-Men were immediately knocked out. Even with Phoenix's telekinesis as a buffer, they were still scratched by the scattered stones. Snap! The sound of shoes landing on the ground was still ringing, and the terrifying white-haired demon still did not stop. Even if the defense was rearranged immediately, the huge pressure around them immediately reached the critical point that Phoenix and Storm could hardly resist. Faced with such a huge pressure, it seemed that the defense they had worked hard to arrange would be destroyed by the terrifying repulsion in the next moment, and they would be crushed into powder under the irresistible force. The fallen Cyclops immediately struggled to get up, endured the pain from all over his body, and used all his strength to release laser beams from his eyes, attacking the white-haired demon in front of him. The Storm Girl on the side did the same. She flew in the air with the help of wind power, constantly summoning powerful thunder to strike the white-haired demon. However, facing an attack more powerful than just now, the white-haired demon, who would have used his hands to block the laser, stopped resisting and grinned at them. Because just now, Su-mu heard the system's prompt. Unlimited spell experience +1. Congratulations, unlimited spell upgraded. Unlimited spell LV3, 1/1000 interfere with atomic level matter, dominate space. The closer the object is to the user, the slower it will be, and it will never touch the user. The dazzling thunder and the scorching laser beam suddenly stopped when they were about to hit Su-mu. The scorching laser that was able to move forward slowly just now could no longer move forward, but was expelled at a faster speed. At the moment when the unlimited spell was upgraded, a large amount of information poured into Sumu's mind, and the range of the unlimited spell expanded rapidly, from the original 10 centimeters outside the body, to 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters, until it stopped when it was 50 centimeters outside the body. Compared to LV2, the range of the unlimited spell was directly increased by 5 times, and the laser attack that could not be completely resisted before could also be easily resisted. At this time, the X-Men could no longer threaten him in the slightest. Seeing this scene, Cyclops said in disbelief. What just happened? Why did my laser suddenly stop working? Just now, his laser could still threaten the white-haired demon, but a few seconds later, it could no longer threaten him at all. Professor X on the side answered his doubts for him. The white-haired demon's defense ability suddenly improved qualitatively, and he has completely ignored your laser attack. Sure enough, my guess was right. His strength is constantly improving with the passage of time. Thinking of this, Professor X immediately realized that they were far from being the opponent of the white-haired demon. If they wanted to bring the white-haired demon back on track, they had to make longer-term plans. So he immediately said, "Child, stop, we have no ill will towards you." But the white-haired demon's footsteps continued, with no intention of stopping at all. Facing huge pressure, the Phoenix Girl, who was mainly maintaining defense, was trembling all over, and the wounds of all sizes on her body were bleeding, as if she would no longer be able to resist the attack in front of her in the next moment. And the red color in her pupils, like the fire, became more and more obvious, as if it would burst at any time. Seeing this, Professor X became even more anxious. If Jean lost control at this time, then her battle with the white-haired demon might destroy the whole New York. While comforting Jean, Professor X anxiously said to the white-haired demon in front of him again, "Child, we have no ill intentions. If it makes you unhappy, we will leave immediately." But the white-haired demon's footsteps continued. At this time, even Storm and Cyclops discovered the problem of Phoenix. They looked at the white-haired demon who was constantly oppressing, and saw that the professor was almost unable to suppress Jean, and suddenly showed despair. "I don't know who will win between Jean and the white-haired demon, but they are dead, and the whole New York will no longer exist. I didn't expect that just wanting to win over the white-haired demon to join Xavier's school for gifted youth would cause such a huge disaster." At this time, all of them regretted it, but the disaster was about to happen and could not be stopped at all. They didn't think that with the white-haired demon's previous unscrupulous style of behavior, he would suddenly stop and let them go. However, when they looked desperate, waiting for the Phoenix Girl to completely lose control and fight with the white-haired demon, they suddenly discovered that at the moment when the Phoenix Girl was completely on the verge of her limit, the white-haired demon actually stopped. The terrifying pressure disappeared instantly, and the white-haired demon stopped attacking at some point and was looking at them coldly. The fear of death enveloped them deeply, making them unable to breathe. Days passed like years in a depressing atmosphere, and there was silence all around. This silence lasted for several minutes. Suddenly, the X-Men saw the white-haired demon in action, and immediately went on full alert to prevent a terrorist attack that might come at any time. However, the scene in front of them shocked them. They saw the white-haired demon who had just looked like he wanted to kill them, took one step and disappeared from the place without a trace. The terrifying crisis was suddenly lifted, which left him a little confused. After all, the white-haired demon had just wanted to kill them, but now he suddenly wanted to consider their invitation. Storm said unconfidently. Could it be that he was really influenced by the professor? Professor. It is indeed possible, but the chance is too small. I prefer the second possibility, that the white-haired demon has some kind of crisis-sensing ability, or even the ability to predict the future. He used this power to predict Jean's loss of control, and then left. After hearing the professor's words, except for Phoenix Girl who fell into a coma due to excessive use of her powers. Storm Girl and Cyclops carefully recalled the details just now, and suddenly found that the professor's guess was more likely. Has he awakened another mutant ability, or did he have it before and only showed it now? Cyclops has never seen mutants exist with so many abilities. Please read and collect. Chapter 34. Are you cozying the White Devil? The Storm Girl on the side even said. It's really scary. With the speed of the White Devil, if there really is no upper limit, wouldn't it be true that no one can stop him in the near future? After hearing Storm Girl's question, Professor X fell into silence for a long time. He didn't know how to answer Storm Girl's question, so he could only say slowly. Because of this, we should pull him onto the right path. Cyclops on the side suddenly asked. So how do we get him on the right path? When this question was asked, everyone fell completely silent. Above the sky, Su-mu was pacing in the air, covering a distance of several hundred meters with one step. In the confrontation with the X-Men just now, there were two reasons why he stopped attacking and chose to leave instead. First, the Phoenix Girl possesses the Phoenix Power. The Phoenix Power is one of the most formidable existences in the Marvel multiverse. It is the embodiment of all life and emotions. As the most ancient power, the complete Phoenix Power can decompose, transform, reorganize, create, and destroy all things at will, and can also distort cause and effect and timeline at will. He can travel to any latitude, dimension, and universe at will without any restrictions. The complete Phoenix Force is a great existence that transcends the almighty universe. Even if the Phoenix Power in Phoenix Girl's body is only a tiny fragment, it is definitely an extremely terrifying power. It can easily make Phoenix Girl a 5th-level mutant, and she is also an extremely powerful existence among 5th-level mutants. Since it was uncertain whether the unlimited spell could block the Black Phoenix's ability to decompose matter, and whether the regeneration rate of the reversal spell was faster than the Phoenix Woman's ability to decompose matter, Su-mu still did not take the risk. Second, there will definitely be a conflict between the X-Men and Colonel Stryker. He had asked Tony Stark to find Stryker's whereabouts before, but he may have known that he would be targeted by the White Devil, so Stryker deliberately hid his whereabouts, so that even Tony Stark could not find him. Traces. Later, Su-mu asked S.H.I.E.L.D. again, and the result was the same. So he plans to rely on the X-Men to lead out Stryker's traces. Stryker, who hates mutants extremely, will definitely take action against the X-Men. The hook has been left, all you have to do is wait for the fish to take the bait. In a remote town in New Mexico, in a restaurant, all the customers looked at a table of strange customers. Just because one of the customers at the table suddenly broke a cup. Although the other companions of that companion immediately apologized, they still attracted the attention of many customers. However, the next moment, the doorbell of the restaurant rang, and a slender figure walked in, diverting all the customers' attention from the rude man to him. "Hey man, are you cosplaying the White Devil?" One of the chubby guys who was close to the store was attracted by the doorbell. He turned his head and looked behind him. He immediately saw the handsome man with white hair and sunglasses who came in. He was very familiar with this outfit. He was a level 5 mutant. White Devil costume. Because the White Devil's mutant abilities and decorations are extremely cool, and he is extremely well known around the world, many young people continue to try to cosplay with him for various reasons. This little chubby guy was no exception, but he was short in stature and fat in stature, so he couldn't cosplay even a trace of the White Devil's temperament, so he had to give up the attempt. When he saw the handsome man who had just walked into the restaurant, he was extremely envious. This guy's height, figure, and even appearance were very similar to the White Devil. If he hadn't known that the White Devil was in New York at this time, he might have thought that this guy was dude is literally the White Devil. As soon as Su-mu entered the door, he saw a little fat man with white hair casting envious eyes at him. Then he heard the little fat man ask him if he was cosplaying the White Devil, and kept praising him for his extremely high level of restoration. Su-mu was slightly stunned at first, and then he understood what Little Fatty meant. Then he didn't know what he thought of, and said to Little Fatty with a malicious look. "Thanks man, your hair is cool too." After receiving the approval from the cosplay boss in front of him, Xiao Pengdun looked excited and looked at the mirror on the side of the glass. He looked at himself reflected in the glass. He looked so handsome no matter how he looked. I knew that Tom and the others must be jealous of my handsomeness and deliberately mock me. So Mew. Passing by the narcissistic little fat man, So Mew walked to the strange table where the cup had just been thrown, and then sat down under the strange looks of Soul and others. Through the description of the plot of Thor 1 and a little help from S.H.I.E.L.D., So Mew immediately found this town. After resting in a hotel for a day, So Mew discovered that Soul and others had arrived at the restaurant that had appeared in the plot, and decided to come to look for Soul. After sitting down and seeing Soul and others looking at her in confusion, So Mew grinned and showed a bright smile. "Hi everyone, hello, my name is So Mew. Of course, others prefer to call me the White Devil. Can I get to know you?" Hearing So Mew's self-introduction, everyone except Thor, the god of thunder, laughed out loud. Among them, Jane Foster, the future girlfriend of the god of thunder, laughed and said, "Are you the White Devil? What a coincidence, we also have a thunder god from Norse mythology here." "You think so, Thor?" Facing Jane Foster's teasing, So Mew did not try to prove anything, but looked at Thor in shock. "Oh my god, you are Thor, the legendary son of Odin, and the future king of Asgard." Since landing in the atrium, he has been frustrated repeatedly after losing the power of the god of thunder. No one believed that he was Thor, the god of thunder. At this time, he was suddenly recognized, and Thor suddenly felt that the weak human being in front of him was extremely amiable. "Yes, I am Thor, the god of thunder, the son of Odin. You are very discerning. After I find Mjolnir and return to Asgard, I will definitely reward you heavily." The smile on So Mew's face became even more joyful. "Thank you so much, Your Highness Thor." Seeing the stranger who called himself the White Devil chatting happily with Thor, who called himself the God of Thunder, the other three people couldn't laugh or cry. Thor is already troublesome, but here comes another madman. At this moment, Soul recalled So Mew's self-introduction just now, and thought of the reactions of others around him, so he curiously asked So Mew, "Are you famous? Why are other people in the Midgard looking at you?" Before So Mew could respond, Jane Foster answered on his behalf. "He's playing a very famous person." After Jane Foster's explanation, Soul finally understood the concept of cosplay, so he smiled boldly at So Mew and said, "That white demon is too weak. You should cosplay with me, the great god of thunder, Thor. That would be cooler." So Mew, who was repeatedly patted on the shoulder by the god of thunder, did not say anything, but the smile at the corner of his mouth became deeper. Please collect and read. Chapter 35 The Hammer God Who Lost His Hammer. At this moment, a fat middle-aged man at the counter of the restaurant said to his companion, "You missed a good show. I heard that a satellite landed in the desert. We were enjoying watching it, and the spies from the investigation bureau came." Jane Foster curiously asked the middle-aged obese man, "Excuse me, are you saying that a satellite fell in the desert?" "Yes." The middle-aged obese man replied. Professor Eric on the other side of the table also looked curious, "What do satellites look like?" The obese middle-aged man continued to answer, "I don't understand satellites, but I know they are very heavy and no one can pick them up." Upon hearing this, Soul immediately stood up, came to the middle-aged man's side, took his shoulder and asked, "Where is it?" The middle-aged man looked at the impolite Soul behind him and was startled, but he still replied, "Go west 50 miles from here." Seeing Soul leaving, he kindly reminded, "Don't waste time, the army has already arrived." But Soul ignored him completely and walked straight out of the restaurant. Jane Foster and others also followed, leaving only So Mew alone. But he didn't follow in a hurry. Instead, he ordered an egg tart and ate it slowly. When he slowly walked out of the restaurant, he happened to see Jane Foster saying to Saul, who wanted to buy a horse at the pet store, "Do you want a ride?" Just when Saul was sitting in the passenger seat, the two of them suddenly heard a familiar magnetic voice coming from the side, "Then can I take a ride?" Jane Foster and Saul looked out the window and saw the white-haired young man who was in the restaurant just now using his index finger knuckle to lightly press the window and showing them a bright smile. "Oh, of course, but we want to do something extremely dangerous." "Are you sure you want to go together?" Jane Foster replied. "Yes." A mysterious smile appeared on Soo-Mu's face. "I finally met the legendary Thor, God of Thunder, and I am not willing to leave just like that." On the way to their destination, Jane Foster said to Saul, "I have never done such a thing, have you?" Saul said with a mysterious smile, "Many times." When he was still about to say something, the white-haired man behind him also replied, "Yeah, I've done it many times, it's nothing." Saul asked Soo-Mu curiously, "Oh, Soo-Mu, what have you done?" "I destroyed a gang stronghold alone, and I also faced the encirclement and suppression of the army and mutants and left calmly. I destroyed a huge mechanical armor, and I also fought two terrifying monsters. Some time ago, I had a confrontation with the X-Men on the streets of New York and almost destroyed the entire New York." Thor was stunned for a moment after hearing this. He didn't expect Soo-Mu's life to be so exciting, but he remembered that Soo-Mu was cosplaying the white-haired devil at this time. Couldn't these be all the deeds of the white-haired devil? At this time Jane Foster smiled and said, "You two are really interesting. One thinks he is a white-haired devil, and the other thinks he is the god of thunder." Before she could finish speaking, Sol immediately interrupted her. "I am the god of thunder, not that I think I am the god of thunder. When I get back the power of the god of thunder, you will know everything." Seeing the serious expression on Thor's face, Jane Foster recalled the scene where she met Thor for the first time. He fell from the sky. If he was really the god of thunder who was deprived of his divine power by Odin and exiled to the atrium, well, it's all explained effectively. But just as she was gradually convinced by Sol, Soo-Mu in the back seat also smiled and nodded. Yes, I believe Thor is the god of thunder, and I am also a white-haired devil. Jane, you have to believe us." Jane, who had just begun to believe in Sol, immediately shook her head after hearing Soo-Mu's words. "I'm really crazy that I would accompany you to do such a thing. But they stole my lifelong research results, and I will get them all back." Hearing what the girl from the atrium in front of him said that he liked, Sol immediately smiled and said to her, "Don't worry, when I get Mjolnir back, I will definitely ask them to return all the materials." Soo-Mu also nodded deeply, "Yes, when we get there, we will ask them to hand over everything." Jane Foster smiled slightly, non-committal. Obviously, she didn't believe it at all. Before they were completely close to their destination, the three of them parked the vehicle in a hidden location, then walked to a hillside and used binoculars on the hillside to observe the temporary military base below. At this time, the sky was completely dark, and the surroundings were dark, with only the lights in the base ahead for illumination. After a moment of observation, Sol handed Jane Foster his coat to keep her warm from the cold, and then planned to rush down, but was stopped by Jane Foster, who said with a serious face, "You think you can just walk over and take our things and leave?" Sol smiled confidently. "No, I want to fly out." After saying that, he rushed straight to the military base without waiting for Jane Foster to say anything else. Boom! Suddenly there was a burst of thunder in the sky, accompanied by dazzling lightning that instantly illuminated the whole world. Under the light of lightning, he broke into the military base and defeated one agent after another. Thor finally looked like a god of thunder at this time. Seeing Thor fighting with many agents, Jane Foster was very worried. Suddenly, a cynical and magnetic laugh came from her side. "Don't worry, even if Thor really can't get back the power of Thor, I'm here, I will solve all the problems." The worried look on Jane Foster's face froze immediately. Because of the previous preparations, she might still have the fantasy that Thor is the legendary Thor, but she never expected that Soo-Mew is really the white-haired devil. Not only because the white-haired devil is in New York at this time, it is impossible to appear in New Mexico, but also because the white-haired devil in her impression will not be Soo-Mew's unreliable appearance. As the strongest level 5 mutant, the white-haired devil who is enough to wipe out a city in a short time has always been a cruel and cold man in the news, and it is impossible to be the funny guy in front of him who always has a smirk. At this time, under their gaze, Thor defeated one agent after another and came to the front of Thor's hammer. Then he confidently held the hammer handle with one hand and wanted to pick up Thor's hammer. However, one attempt, no result. 2 attempts, still no result. After continuous attempts, Thor finally gave up and knelt on the ground and roared in despair after using all his strength to pick up Thor's hammer. Seeing this scene, Jane Foster immediately turned around and walked towards the car parked in the distance. It seemed that she wanted to find a rescuer. But she was suddenly stopped by a tall white-haired figure. Even at this time, the white-haired figure still had an unreliable smile on his mouth. "Didn't I say that there is still me?" Jane Foster had no time to communicate with Soo-Mew at this time. She immediately said, "Soo-Mew, we have to leave quickly and find Dr. Eric to bail Thor out, otherwise he will be in danger." But Soo-Mew's smile on his face did not change, and he still stopped her. Just when she was getting impatient, she suddenly found that Soo-Mew in front of her had become strange. It was obviously the same smile, but suddenly it changed from unreliable to chilling coldness, making her feel extremely strange and cold all over. Unreliable Soo-Mew. No. It was the white-haired devil who said to her with a cold face. "I told you, there is also me. Please read and collect it." Chapter 36 Template Fusion Degree 56. Chapter 36 Template Fusion Degree 56%. Under Jane Foster's shocked gaze, Soo-Mew stood up, put his hands in his pockets, and strolled towards the base ahead. He was unhurried, as if the front was not a heavily guarded military base, but a leisurely resort. Because Seoul had just trespassed into the base, many agents at this time were even more vigilant. When Soo-Mew just approached, he immediately discovered his traces. So some agents immediately went to stop him, but when they got close to Soo-Mew and saw his appearance clearly, they subconsciously stopped. "White hair, blue eyes, he is the White Devil!" An agent immediately screamed after discovering it. Compared to civilians, they S.H.I.E.L.D. agents know the White Devil better and understand the terror of the White Devil better. Unlike the X-Men, who long for mutants to coexist peacefully with humans, and the Brotherhood of Mutants, who want to eliminate humans and let mutants rule the world, the White Devil is a powerful mutant who has no purpose and does whatever he wants. Because there is no idea and no clear goal, there is no concern and it is impossible to predict its actions. It is the most unstable factor. At this time, another agent asked doubtfully. "Shouldn't the White Devil be in New York at this time? Could he be some other copycat?" Hearing this sentence, all the agents had this doubt, but when the white-haired figure in front approached again, they no longer had the previous thoughts. Soo-Mew took a step, and the powerful pressure from the reversal of the spell he suddenly burst out, knocking away the intercepting agents around him. The alarm immediately sounded, and the radio calls from the agents kept echoing emergency notifications. "The White Devil is coming! The White Devil is coming!" Different from the fun of facing Thor, all the agents acted quickly like precision parts, holding firearms in an instant and preparing to meet the enemy. Among them, Hawkeye, who was at a high place when Seoul attacked, even lost his previous relaxation when he heard the message in the headset, and looked solemnly towards the front of the base. There was a figure there with his hands in his pockets, moving forward calmly. As he advanced, a huge repulsive force enveloped the surrounding area for tens of meters. Whether it was a temporary building or a well-trained agent, they were all knocked out of the area. Hawkeye stared at the white demon, holding the bowstring with his right hand, wondering whether he should fire it or not. At this moment, perhaps sensing his gaze, the white devil suddenly looked towards him. There was no emotion in his eyes. It was complete indifference. It was precisely because of this look that Hawkeye completely gave up shooting special explosive arrows. Because he knew that his arrow would not be able to cause any harm to the white devil, but would instead cost him his life. Any random attack from the white devil is extremely fatal to him. As a well-trained and powerful agent, he is not afraid of death, but he will never make any sacrifice without any value. In a room covered with surveillance screens, repeated alarms continued to be heard from loudspeakers. Alarm! The white devil is coming! Alarm! The white devil is coming! After one of the bald men wearing glasses heard the content of the alarm, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. He moved to a hidden corner to send a message to the unknown IP address, and then continued to command. Don't anger the white devil, we are no match for him, don't make meaningless sacrifices. Agent Coulson, you have had close contact with the white demon, and now we can only rely on you. Coulson, who was in an interrogation room and was questioning Saul, suddenly heard an alarm from his headset, and then heard a message from another agent. The white devil is coming. Why did he come here? Coulson immediately thought of the hammer located here. If there is something here that can attract the white devil, it must be it. Without much hesitation, Coulson left the interrogation room and rushed outside the base. Saul, who was left in the interrogation room, also heard the alarms constantly coming from around him. White devil, isn't that the person Soo-Mew has been cosplaying with? Why does he appear here? Suddenly, he thought of something. Thinking of his conversation with Soo-Mew during this period and how he didn't care about breaking into the military base, he immediately realized something. No, he's not really a white devil, is he? So everything he said before was true. As soon as Coulson came outside, he found that a large number of buildings in front of him had been destroyed by the terrifying repulsion. It was still raining at this time, and there were swamps everywhere. Most of the agents were lying on the ground in a haphazard manner, soaked to the skin and looking miserable. As a result, the figure standing in the void seemed even more abrupt. When the rain came close to him for tens of meters, it was bounced away by invisible repulsion, unable to get close to him. He was walking around in the air, his body not stained by any dust, he was aloof and independent, as if he didn't belong to this world. Coulson saw that the terrifying invisible force field had begun to destroy the temporary main building, and he immediately shouted. Mr. Soo-Mew! Mr. Soo-Mew! I am Coulson. We have communicated in Stark Tower before. Please stop. We welcome you. Soo-Mew, who was standing in the void, heard Coulson's voice, withdrew his repulsion, and stepped forward to Coulson's side. Seeing Soo-Mew appear and stop the attack, Coulson breathed a sigh of relief, and then said. Mr. Soo-Mew, you don't have to make such a fuss. If you want to come, we welcome you. Soo-Mew grinned and chuckled. If he didn't have the power at this time, you would probably have a different attitude, right? He smiled and said. I just said hello just now, and I didn't mean any harm. Looking at the large number of agents falling to the ground in the distance and the temporary base that was half destroyed, Coulson couldn't help but keep complaining in his heart. Is this what you call a greeting? But he also understood that for the White Devil, this level of attack was indeed merciful. Coulson continued to ask. I don't know why you came. Soo-Mew walked towards the inside of the base and responded. You captured my friend, I came to save him. Coulson immediately thought of the man who just called himself Thor, and cold sweat immediately flowed down his forehead. Fortunately, they did not hurt the man, otherwise the situation at this time might really be out of control. After entering the base, Soo-Mew walked straight to the location of Thor's hammer. When he arrived at the meteorite crater, he suddenly found a figure trying to pick up Thor's hammer. But he was obviously not recognized. No matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't pick up the hammer. Seeing this scene, Su-mu immediately knew who the person in the strange armor was, so he immediately said to Coulson in a playful way. Loki, you can't pick it up because you are not qualified. Hearing this, Loki immediately turned around and looked behind him. When he saw Su-mu, he was stunned. He didn't expect that a mere person in the atrium could detect his existence when he was invisible. Then Loki immediately showed an arrogant look. Even if he was standing below Su-mu, he still looked down at him as if he was condescending. Loki opened his arms and said arrogantly, "Strong man of the Midgard, you are qualified to meet the king of Asgard." Su-mu looked at the arrogant Loki in front of him, and then looked at the character template fusion degree that had reached 56% during this period of time, as well as many powerful skills, and the smile on the corner of his mouth suddenly became interesting. It seems that I have to teach this naughty baby a lesson. It is a very good fantasy farming novel, readers who like it can go and have a look. Chapter 37, Virtual Style. Chapter 37 Virtual Style ZI. Looking at Loki in front of him, Su-mu walked towards him without any intention of greeting. Seeing this scene, Loki frowned. He didn't expect that the Midgard man in front of him was so rude and dared to offend the king of Asgard. So he immediately summoned the dagger, wanting to teach the rude Midgard man in front of him a lesson and let the rude Midgard man understand the etiquette of respect and inferiority. He directly aied towards Su-mu with a mocking smile. "Humble Midgard man, it seems that I need to teach you how to kneel when facing the king." Seeing that the dagger was about to hit the Midgard man in front of him, Loki sneered. The Midgard man didn't even react to his attack. Even though the dagger was less than 1 meter away from him, he still had no intention of dodging, which made him feel boring. However, just when the dagger was about to approach the Midgard man in front of him, the expression on his face suddenly froze, and he looked at the dagger in front of him that could not move forward any further. What kind of power is this? Just when Loki was about to say something, a strong repulsive force came from the front. The pressure caused by this repulsive force was even stronger than being hit by Thor's hammer head-on. He was suddenly blown away by the terrifying repulsive force. His body first shattered the surrounding glass walls, destroyed the metal brackets along the way, then cut through the rain curtain, broke through the outermost metal fence of the base, and then stopped. "Oh, my back!" Loki only felt severe pain all over his body, and felt that everything in front of him was a dream. Is this a Midgard person? When did they become so strong? Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the strong attraction once again attracted him to the white-haired demon in the distance. The terrifying attraction ignored any of his resistance. Even if he stuck the dagger into the ground, the speed of being attracted did not decrease at all. Finally, he returned to the room wrapped in glass again, returned to the Thor's hammer that he had been thinking about, and saw the terrifying white-haired demon again. After catching Loki again, Su-mu grinned and thought of something. So he held one of Loki's legs tightly, used spell power manipulation and energy enhancement to strengthen his body to the limit, swung Loki back and forth, and kept smashing him to the ground until he stopped after dozens of times. After everything was over, looking at Loki with a dull face and doubting his life, Su-mu said something that he didn't understand now. "No wonder Hulk likes to smash things, the feel is really good." Because Su-mu suddenly took action just now, Coulson had already dodged far away. Seeing that everything was calm, he immediately came over. Seeing the strange man with horns suddenly appearing, he asked Su-mu in confusion. "Mr. Su-mu, who is he?" Su-mu was still savoring the feel just now. After experimenting on Loki, he immediately liked this feeling. Hearing Coulson's words, he replied casually. "Loki, son of Odin, second prince of Asgard, and also a naughty child of thousands of years old." "Loki, isn't that a myth?" Coulson said in disbelief. For the ancients in the past, they were indeed gods who mastered powerful technology and magic, but their essence was nothing more than aliens. Looking at Loki, who was defeated by the white-haired demon, Coulson nodded deeply. How could there be such a weak god? Seeing the agents bring Loki to the interrogation room, Su-mu ignored it. He knew that Loki would definitely escape, and these agents could not imprison the god of trickery at all. But this is what Su-mu thought. If Loki did not escape, the destroyer armor would not come to the earth, and the subsequent Mind Gem gift pack would no longer exist. Focusing on Thor's hammer, Su-mu reached out and grasped the hammer handle, trying to lift it, but it was obvious that the white-haired demon was not qualified to lift Thor's hammer. And at this time, his strength was far less than Odin's, and he could not use brute force to break the magic left by Odin on it. At this time, in the interrogation room, Thor was shocked to see his brother being imprisoned. He was sure that his cunning brother would never be caught by those agents, so someone else caught him. So he asked directly, Loki, who defeated you and captured you? After being asked by Thor, Loki finally recovered from the blow. He looked at Thor, who was also imprisoned beside him, and replied with gritted teeth. A damn white-haired man from the atrium, he insulted me, I will make him pay the price. As soon as the voice fell, Loki disappeared from the spot with the flash of magic. When Thor heard his words, he immediately thought of Su-mu's white hair. The previous idea could not help but emerge again. Could he really be the white-haired devil? At this moment, a figure pushed open the door and walked in. The visitor had familiar white hair and familiar round-frame sunglasses. But at this time, the exquisite blue eyes that had been hidden under the sunglasses were revealed, which contained the unruly and empty eyes that he had never been able to match before. Thor heard the familiar yet strange white-haired demon in front of him say, "What a mess, Thor." After releasing Thor, Su-mu stayed in a 5-star hotel, waiting for the arrival of the destroyer. And during this process, he kept absorbing the energy from the 2 arc reactors, constantly improving the panel fusion degree. A few days later, the sound of the system upgrading continued to ring in Su-mu's ears. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. Energy point +1. After a long period of absorption, the colors of the 2 arc reactors became much dimmer than before. After a while, they would need to find Tony Stark to replace the new arc reactors. After absorbing for a few minutes again, Su-mu heard several slightly different system prompts. Energy point +1. Template fusion degree, 60%. You have unlocked a new skill, Virtual Style /. Chapter 38 Destroyer Armor. The border town in the distance was in chaos, and the terrifying mechanical monsters several meters high were constantly destroying everywhere. The agents and some civilians who came to stop them were already dead. At this time, Thor was evacuating the surrounding civilians with Jane Foster and Dr. Eric, while the 4 warriors of Asgard rushed towards the destroyer armor that had descended. They knew that they were no match for the destroyer armor that Odin had spent a lot of effort to carefully build, but they were also quite confident in their own strength and believed that they could buy enough time to evacuate the crowd. So, just like Loki went to Su-mu a few days ago, Fandral, who had a big brown beard, bravely rushed towards the destroyer armor with the help of his companions. But when he just approached and had no time to attack, he was hit in the face by a punch from the destroyer armor, was smashed out and finally fell on a car, unable to get up again. When the destroyer armor was about to release a laser from its head to kill Fandral, Sif, the only female of the 4 warriors of Asgard, jumped off the roof and pierced the neck of the destroyer armor with a spear in her hand. Just when they breathed a sigh of relief and thought everything was over, they found that the destroyer armor had lit up again. It was unscathed and released energy rays again to force them back. In just a moment, the 4 warriors of Asgard were defeated by the destroyer armor. Only then did they realize the gap between themselves and the destroyer armor. When Thor saw the 4 injured warriors of Asgard and looked at the destroyer armor that was still being destroyed, he suddenly realized his responsibility, so he stood up and walked towards the destroyer armor in the distance. He wanted to use his life to save the lives of the weak, which is what a king should do. Just as Thor was preparing to welcome his own death, clear footsteps suddenly came from a distance, and the uninhabited border town at this time was extremely conspicuous. Everyone looked in the direction of the footsteps, and saw a young man with white hair and sunglasses, walking over unhurriedly with his hands in his pockets. He seemed not to notice the tragic situation in front of him, and the terrifying destroyer armor standing in the firelight, chewing gum bought from nowhere, while walking slowly like shopping. First, he passed by Jane Foster and others and said to them, "Hello, Jane, Professor Eric, we meet again." When Jane Foster saw So-Mu, a light of hope flashed in her eyes, and she immediately said to So-Mu, "So-Mu, help Thor, he is dying now." But before So-Mu could answer, the goddess of land and harvest Sif shook her head and said, "People of the atrium, give up, let Thor die gloriously, you can't stop the destroyer armor." So-Mu completely ignored Sif, nodded to Jane, and said in his usual unremarkable tone, "Then you have to agree to one condition of mine in the future, and you must first ask me to help you treat you after you're sick." Although So-Mu came for the destroyer armor, it is also very good to let Jane Foster owe him a favor at this time. When she is possessed by the reality gem in the future, I believe that the reversal technique will be upgraded to a sufficient level by then, and it is very likely that the reality gem in her body can be taken out. Isn't this another express delivery? Although she didn't know what So-Mu meant, in order to save Thor, Jane Foster immediately nodded in agreement. "Okay, I promise you, I will find you as soon as I get sick." So-Mu smiled with satisfaction, and then walked towards the destroyer armor. Suddenly, a figure stopped him. It was Sif, the only female among the 4 warriors of Asgard. She said to So-Mu with a serious face, "Go back, you can't be the opponent of the destroyer armor, don't destroy the glory that belongs to Thor." Hearing her words, So-Mu couldn't help but sneered. "Glory is being slaughtered." Faced with So-Mu's ridicule, Sif immediately gave a warning. For Asgard warriors, dying on the battlefield and being remembered by future generations is the highest honor. Please leave immediately. Facing earthlings other than Thor, the 4 warriors of Asgard would not be so good-tempered. They looked down on the backward atrium. At this time, they did not immediately attack So-Mu because he knew Thor. Looking at Sif, the legendary goddess of land and harvest, who was still blocking him, So-Mu had no patience anymore. He smiled brightly at Sif. Just when Sif thought he would return, So-Mu swung his right hand hard, and Sif was blown away by the powerful repulsive force, her body smashed through houses, and finally embedded in the ground without any movement. The remaining 3 warriors of the Asgard Palace who were watching the show on the side, and Jane Foster and others, suddenly stagnated their breath and looked at what had just happened in shock. The 3 warriors of the Asgard Palace looked at So-Mu in disbelief. When did the people of the Midgard become so powerful? They actually defeated Sif in an instant. When they reacted, instead of being afraid, they rushed towards So-Mu. The people of the Midgard dared to attack the goddess of land and harvest, which was a heinous crime. Then, in the eyes of Jane Foster and others, the remaining 3 Asgard warriors were also blown away in an instant, and fainted on the ground after smashing houses. Even though she knew that So-Mu was really the white-haired devil, Jane Foster was still incredible. Is the white-haired devil really so powerful? Even more terrifying than the gods in legends. As for Dr. Eric and Darcy, who still don't know So-Mu's identity, they have subconsciously held their breath and stared at So-Mu in a daze. So he is really a white-haired demon, not a cosplay? So is the white-haired demon really that powerful? After dealing with the 4 fools in Asgard, So-Mu took a step forward and appeared in front of Thor as if teleporting, confronting the destroyer armor. When Thor saw So-Mu coming, he first showed joy on his face, but immediately dimmed again and said to him, "So-Mu, don't be impulsive. This is the destroyer armor made by my father to fight against the Celestials. It is made entirely of URU alloy and is extremely powerful. You can't be its opponent. You should leave quickly." Loki's target is me. At least if he kills me, he will leave. Before Thor continued to advise, the body of the destroyer armor showed a scorching light, and an energy ray that was much more powerful than before suddenly shot towards Summu. Loki, who was controlling the destroyer armor in Asgard, saw the white-haired man in front of him through the vision of the destroyer armor, and his face was overjoyed. Isn't this the damn bastard who insulted him a few days ago? This is the perfect opportunity for revenge. Even if that bastard is really strong, he is definitely no match for the destroyer armor. Loki immediately ordered the destroyer armor to attack with all his strength. For some reason, Loki only used a small part of the power of the destroyer armor when attacking Thor and others before. Now facing the white-haired demon who once humiliated him, he immediately ordered the destroyer armor to exert its full strength. The hot energy beam flew towards Summu at a high speed, and Thor on the side couldn't bear to see what happened next. Even if Summu is very powerful, he can never be the opponent of the destroyer armor. He will be killed by the energy beam and turned into nothingness, and even his body will not be left behind. But the next moment, Thor's face turned into absolute astonishment. Loki, who was controlling the destroyer armor in the Asgard, changed his face greatly. In the field of vision observed through the destroyer armor, a fist forced to meet the laser beam and hit the chest of the destroyer armor directly. The next moment, the terrifying black and red lightning suddenly broke out between the two. A very good novel, the work of a great guy. Aliens invade the world of American comics. Chapter 39 Energy Absorption Level 4. Black lightning exploded between Summu and the destroyer armor. The aftermath of the collision between the two destroyed the surrounding area of dozens of meters, and then a huge steel figure was knocked out from the smoke and dust. After punching the destroyer armor away, Summu was not intact. The energy rays released by the destroyer armor are more powerful than the energy rays of the Cyclops, and even the level 3 unlimited technique cannot completely resist it. Summu's chest showed a large area of laser burn marks, which recovered quickly under the effect of the reversal technique. He looked forward excitedly, and the destroyer armor slowly rose from hundreds of meters away, without any damage to the whole body. Summu fell into a disadvantage at the first contact, which was a situation he had never encountered since he crossed over. However, he was not discouraged, but became more and more excited. In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, in addition to increasing the power of the attack to the original 2.5 power, the Black Flash will also put the user into the zone state. In this state, the user can increase his strength, speed, spell power, reaction, etc. to 120% of the normal level, showing amazing abilities. After using Black Flash, Summu immediately entered this state. At this time, he felt unprecedented comfort, unprecedented swiftness of energy and flesh. The destroyer armor in the distance once again released a laser from its head and rushed straight towards Summu. After using the technique to turn Cang to move quickly and avoid the attack, Summu came to the front of the destroyer armor again. This time there was no interference from the laser, and he hit the destroyer armor again in an uninjured state. The energy fine control of the LV36 eyes and the energy mastery ability of LV3 energy absorption greatly increased the success rate of Summu's release of Black Flash. The black and red thunder exploded again, and the destroyer armor was knocked away again, but this time he was not far away, and was attracted by the terrifying azure black hole. The strong pressure from the technique to turn Cang pulled the destroyer armor into the azure black hole, but unlike before, the azure black hole could not cause damage to the destroyer armor. After being suddenly attacked by gravity, the destroyer armor immediately adapted to the huge attraction and regained stability. However, Summu did not feel sorry. He was not surprised that the destroyer armor could ignore the attack of the Cang spell. If Odin could not be immune to the attack of the Cang spell, how could he wear the destroyer armor to fight against the Celestials? The smile on his face became more and more joyful, and the energy in his body was extremely active. His whole body was surrounded by the energy conversion mana, and the azure mana on the surface of his body seemed to be boiling. Extending his index finger, pointing to the destroyer armor in front of him that was resisting the attraction of the king's spell, Su Mu's mouth cracked into a happy smile from the heart. Spell reversal. Hey! The spell power quickly flowed to the tip of the index finger, and a black and red singularity the size of a ping-pong ball formed quickly. As soon as Su Mu finished speaking, the black and red singularity cut through the air, piercing the air to form a terrifying sonic boom, disappearing in front of Su Mu's index finger, and instantly hitting the head of the destroyer armor. Boom! A terrifying explosion occurred, and the destroyer heavy armor was knocked away again. The powerful repulsive force from the reversal of the technique was far more powerful than the attack of the black flash. While knocking the destroyer armor away, it continued to destroy the ground along the way, and finally knocked the destroyer armor away for thousands of meters, leaving a huge gully before it stopped. The aftermath of the explosion spread to the town in the distance, and the entire ground continued to shake, as if a high-intensity earthquake had occurred. At this time, Jane Foster and the 4 warriors of Asgard came to Thor's side, and watched the battle in the distance with Thor in shock. Even Thor, who has not lost his power, can't do this. Sif muttered to herself. The scene in front of her broke her previous cognition. It turned out that the people of the Midgard were so powerful. After releasing the reversal of the spell, Su Mu did not relax, because through the observation of the 6 eyes, the destroyer armor in the dust was still intact, but the armor on the chest was slightly damaged and recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. This made Su Mu slightly complain. Why didn't he show such amazing fighting power when fighting Thor in the movie? Sure enough, Loki loves Thor deeply, and the usual quarrels are just a manifestation of tsundere. While Su Mu was complaining, the destroyer armor in the distance rushed over again. Seeing this scene, Su Mu was even more excited. This was a brand new experience that he didn't get from fighting with Hulk. The two fought again, black lightning burst out from time to time, and the terrifying energy beams left dense scratches on the ground. During the battle, Su Mu's experience in each skill was increasing rapidly, and the system's prompts continued. Energy point +1. 6 eyes experience +1. Energy absorption experience +1. Unlimited spell experience +1. Spell forward king experience +1. Spell reverse he experience +1. After being hit by the energy ray again, Su Mu's arm was immediately pierced, and a large amount of blood was evaporated by the hot ray. But the next moment, the arm was visibly repaired, and the terrifying energy beam was suddenly blocked by the flesh, and it could no longer cause any damage to him. Finally, in the high-intensity battle, the energy absorption that was about to be upgraded was improved again. Energy absorption experience +1. Congratulations, your skill energy absorption has been upgraded. Energy absorption LV4, 1/5000 can absorb almost all types of energy, with extremely high absorption speed and energy storage limit. After the energy absorption was upgraded, Su Mu's body immediately transformed. His bones and muscle fibers were transformed into a state more suitable for storing energy, and the limit of his body's energy storage was increased several times, and even his spirit was greatly strengthened, and his energy control was faster and more accurate. The energy beam that was almost unstoppable was like a spring breeze in front of him at this time, and the speed of energy absorption was far beyond the output speed of the destroyer armor. However, the destroyer armor, which was remotely controlled by Loki, could only exert such strength. Facing Su Mu with LV4 energy absorption, he could no longer hurt him. Although other skills were also strengthened to varying degrees after the energy absorption was upgraded, Su Mu was not going to use those skills. He couldn't wait to fight the destroyer armor. Ignoring the hot energy beam, he tore off the torn shirt on his upper body, revealing his beautiful muscles. Energy absorption LV4 full power strengthens the body, combined with the powerful physical skills given by the mana manipulation and the panel, as well as the refined control of energy and body by the 6 eyes, Su Mu punched in the splashing energy beams. Boom! The more terrifying fist force was amplified to the original 2.5 th power by the terrifying red and black lightning, and the destroyer armor was immediately knocked to the ground. When it came into contact with the ground, the residual power spread to the ground, huge cracks continued to appear, the ground quickly sank, and finally formed a huge circular pit with a diameter of hundreds of meters. Crossing Marvel, Baya only had a numerical panel in the chat group of the heavens. I thought the chat group of the heavens was my golden finger, but I was banned by the omniscient and omnipotent immortal at the beginning. On the contrary, the numerical panel without hope is even more heavyweight. Talent 1 endless, there is no upper limit, no bottleneck, no weakness, and you can become stronger with hard work. Talent 2 rest of the strong, for every 1 point of attribute improvement, an additional 0.1 attribute points to be used are added. As long as you exercise, you can increase your physique infinitely like Saitama, but, isn't the power of each attribute increase a bit wrong? 1 point of strength can't catch a chicken, but 5 points can move at supersonic speed and chase the Hulk all over the street. 20 points can drip blood to regenerate and crush the planet. 50 points can directly blow up the universe with one punch. When the physical fitness shown by each attribute increase is not linear, but increases by percentage, exponential or even factorial, Baya knows that he is going to make it. Baya, this panel is probably designed by the physical education teacher? Good, good, good. Deep Blue, give me a lot of points. In the New York Battle of Avengers 1, Baya punched the Chitauri fleet and grabbed the purple potato spirit's scalp and said, "You are called Thanos." Chapter 40 The Terrifying Power of the Virtual Style. Chapter 40 The Terrifying Power of the Virtual Style. After the energy beam, the main means of attack, lost its effect, the destroyer armor was no longer Suumu's opponent. Every time Suumu attacked, he would absorb the energy from the destroyer's attack and strengthen himself. During the battle, his physical strength was completely consumed and he was always in peak condition. After the energy absorption reached level 4, it was undoubtedly a qualitative improvement. At this time, Suumu could absorb almost all energy, and even absorb all absorbable energy that was not in direct contact with him within a certain range. Now, except for bioenergy, chemical energy, and very few other energies, he can easily absorb and manipulate them. For example, now, looking at the energy beam coming towards him, Suumu clenched his right hand slightly. When the energy beam approached him, it twisted and quickly formed a long spear with flashing light, and then he pierced it into the body of the destroyer and exploded violently. However, this attack is only the most superficial use of energy, and it cannot be compared with the use of skills. The same energy can exert more powerful power by using skills. Another black flash hit the destroyer and sent him flying. The destroyer could no longer easily resist Suumu's attack. The armor on his face was damaged, but it was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a few minutes, Suumu finally adapted to the energy absorption of level 4. His body instantly disappeared from the spot and came to the destroyer armor, with his palm gently covering his chest. The next moment, the terrifying black and red singularity was released at close range, and the powerful repulsive force broke out in the chest of the destroyer armor. This attack finally penetrated its chest armor, causing great damage to it. Looking at the destroyer armor that was still recovering, Suumu couldn't help but sigh at the power of this armor made by Odin. The destroyer armor controlled by Loki was completely unable to exert all its power. I really don't know what kind of style the destroyer armor worn by Odin would be. But at this time, Suumu was tired of playing, and the destroyer armor in front of him could no longer pose the slightest threat to him. Looking at the destroyer armor in front of him, Suumu took off his sunglasses and threw them aside. He stretched out the fingers of his left hand, held his right hand and left hand together, and looked at the destroyer armor in front of him, with the excitement in his eyes reaching the extreme. Spell forward Cang. A half-human-sized azure black hole first formed on the left side behind him. Spell reverse He. Another half-human-sized black-red singularity formed on the right side behind him, but it was slightly unstable because of the forced activation. Black lightning kept escaping and destroyed everything around. But these black lightnings were absorbed by energy when they approached Su-mu, and could not hurt him at all. Finally, Su-mu made a finger-snapping motion forward and said the name of this powerful ability that required the fusion of two powerful spells to be used. Virtual Style ZI. The azure black hole and the black-red singularity overlapped. Under the absolute control of energy absorption level 4 and the guidance of the experience of using the virtual style ZI in his mind, the dark purple false mass sphere was completely formed, and then accompanied by purple lightning, it crashed into the destroyer armor. The dazzling purple light obscured everything around, making it all eclipsed. The whole world could only see a huge purple sphere moving forward at a high speed, destroying everything around it. In an instant, the terrifying illusion sphere passed through the destroyer armor and continued to move forward, destroying the Gobi along the way, passing through a mountain, until it disappeared at the end of the sight. After everything calmed down, Thor and others were stunned and saw a huge gully with a diameter of tens of meters starting from the white-haired demon and spreading to the end of the sight. Even the towering mountains in the distance could not stop it at all and were completely penetrated. And the indestructible destroyer armor, after facing this attack that was enough to penetrate the space head-on, disappeared completely, and not even a piece of Uru metal was left. In the Asgard god realm, after seeing the last picture sent back by the destroyer armor, Loki's body completely softened. What kind of monster is this? In a luxurious room, under a layer of transparent glass, Odin, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly opened his single eye, with deep horror in his eyes. Is it another ancient one? In a mysterious hall somewhere, a kind-looking bald woman put down the tea in her hand, turned her head to look in a certain direction and whispered. Has he grown to this extent? It is worthy of being a mysterious existence in the multiverse that only exists by itself and has no isotopes. In a hidden military base, the scene in the Gobi Desert was photographed by a surveillance satellite and projected on a huge screen hanging on the wall. Colonel Stryker pointed to the huge gully that seemed to divide the entire Gobi Desert in two and shouted angrily. The white-haired demon has grown to this point. If we don't launch the annihilation plan, then when his strength increases again, there will be no chance to kill him, and the entire United States will be ruled by him in the future. Hearing Stryker's words, a general immediately expressed his position. I agree. Then other senior military generals nodded one after another. Agree. Agree. After a while, everyone agreed to carry out the white-haired demon annihilation plan. Seeing this, Colonel Stryker finally smiled on his face. He smiled and said to many generals. Generals, the white-haired demon suppression device and the sentinels with space-slashing capability are fully ready and can attack at any time. A few minutes later, the supersonic helicopter that had been prepared took off from the military base closest to Su-mu and flew towards him at a high speed. At the end of the huge gully, Su-mu smiled brightly and looked at the traces left by the virtual style. The LV1 virtual style should not have such great power at all. He used the LV4 energy absorption at this time to forcibly release the more powerful virtual style, which exerted such great power. But this level of attack is also a huge burden for him at this time, so that even he is panting violently, and the energy in his body is almost exhausted. However, under the effect of LV4 energy absorption, whether it is the light energy of the sun, or the surrounding temperature, and the energy in the arc reactor are all being absorbed by him quickly, so the energy in his body is recovering at a very fast speed. After a while, the energy in his body was close to saturation. At the same time, the two arc reactors floating beside Su-mu completely dimmed, and the energy in them had been completely absorbed by him. Looking at the two completely exhausted arc reactors, Su-mu thought. It seems that I have to ask Stark for a new arc reactor, and I should also prepare to obtain the space gem. The LV4 energy absorption should be enough to bear the space gem. After a while, after the energy in his body was fully restored, Su-mu checked the gains of this battle. First of all, 2 of his skills were upgraded again.